Well, hey there, friend. Nice to see you here. I'm happy to see you here. Hey, you probably clicked on this video, you saw the title, and was just morbidly curious, and I mean, hey, I'm just gonna hop right into it, because I mean, I don't even know what my YouTube channel name's gonna be yet, because I mean, I'm not putting this on main, hell no. But yeah, I mean, this is Ice Sucks, Lamau. I am ranking all the ice spells in Wizard 101, and by all of them, I mean the trainable spells asterisk in Wizard 101. So I'm not looking at, like, pedantic stuff, like, oh, Tamaguchi's best 4-pip ice hit or whatever. I don't care about treasure cards, man. I'm talking about, like, cards that you will use consistently because they're in your deck, they're not finite, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, we're just gonna hop right into it. I can't say curse words for the first, like, minute of the video. I don't remember, but I'll keep it PG-13. No F-bombs here unless I accidentally drop one, it happens. But I mean, hey, I've been playing Wizard 101 for 14 years, so yeah, and I'm 22. I am 22 years of age. I had my birthday like a week ago. So yeah, I have some intimate knowledge on the game, but I mean, let's establish some rules. All spells were ranked in the most objective manner possible, with the ultimate framing of just PvE. Just getting you from Unicorn Way to Wallaroo's Finale. That's it. Because you can think about spells in PvP, but it's just a separate meta. It's completely different. A spell that's great in PvE might be awful in PvP. Take a look at all the AoE spells. Why would you use one of those in a 1v1 format? The answer is you wouldn't. Except Spellmints, asterisk, but as I'll say in the next slide, Spellmints were not considered in this list. I'm just saying the spells as you get them, as you use them. You're not speedrunning the game by any means, but you're playing it just efficiently. You're not stopping to grind for Spellmints for every spell. My Storm has been doing that for 2 weeks now in Dragonspire of Boris Blackrock. Still don't have a max tier spell. So yeah. Getting there though, they're all second to last tier, and Triton is halfway there, so you know, that's cool. But yes, that is what I'm looking at. I am just looking at that. So, class blades, set shields, traps were all excluded, because I mean, they're all good. You don't need me to tell you that Ice Blade is the best ice spell, because I mean, it is. It's just like, it's a blade. All schools get them, they're all equal now too. And they're all good. Traps are situationally good, but they are good. Set shields are situationally good, but when they're good, they're very good. So, you know, it's just like, they were excluded. You don't need me to tell you that. I mean, isolated Ice Blade does literally nothing, right? 0 pips gives you a positive blade. It's how Ice Blade affects all other ice spells that makes it the best. So, you know, I mean, you don't need me to tell you that. These spells were ranked based on Ice's damage per pip and Fairy's healing per pip for a certain few spells. Because, you know, there are some spells to compare to Fairy. I started with Ice because they have the least healing potential. They may as well not have healing. But, you know, like, I get it that Scarecrow hits harder and also heals. I get it that Storm Lord is literally just better Frost Giant. But I'm ranking the spells that Ice receives in a bubble. If, for whatever reason in the future, I do all 7 schools, maybe I'll do a giant list and rank all the spells together, comparing one another. But I mean, Ice is just going to be... Oh, I mean, they might have, like, 10 spells not in, like, the bottom half of the list. It's not good. Other trainable school spells will be considered in regards to synergy or lack thereof. And spells within Ice will get extra credit if other schools utilize them too. There is one large example of that. It's actually more than 30 slides away. I just wrote that, you know, I mean, as I went along. But yeah, there's some spells. The Set Shield in Ice is a great example of rewarding against Fire and Storm. That's not a bad spell. I have plenty of other wizards that run a copy or two, but like I said, I'm not including Set Shields because, I mean, Ice arguably has the best Set Shield, but I mean, in terms of that, they're all situationally useful. Is a Set Shield going to do anything versus a Myth boss? A Storm and Fire. It might guard you against a 1-pip hit, and that's it. Maybe in Azteca, where, like, bosses will just have masteries that you can't see, because, you know, that's fun. But, yeah, there's kind of no reason to rank them, right? But there is a spell in the School of Ice that many other schools do want, and that's not the case for all schools. Do you really want to train into Storm for anything in particular? No. Unless you're including Spellments, which I am not, so... Unless you're one of those sickos that, like, dual schools without, like, prior to Arc 4, because it's not good. It's not good. It's not. Like, your Exalted gear doesn't give you universal damage. If you want to warp your build to the point where you can do that, you can, but it's not practical for, like... This isn't from a newbie's perspective, but it's just from a casual playthrough of just trying to play through the game. If you were putting that much preparation into your deck and training point management, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, at that point, just play a different school. You don't have to play Ice. Ice sucks. Don't get me wrong. Is it the worst school? I mean, for PvE, yeah. If you want to tank, just go balance, and then you have better support, and then you have heals. If you want to support and heal and tank and heal yourself, then go death. If you want to heal and tank, then go life. It's just like, yeah, Ice is... They have the most base HP. They still do. Contrary to popular belief, Ice still does have the highest base HP. It's just that life receives more health from gear. So, yeah, I mean, late game, ultimately, Ice no longer has the most health. I believe they still have the most resist, so I mean, pound for pound, they're the best tanks, but how useful is it tank in Wizard101? I don't know. Like, it's one thing to be passive. It's another thing to not provide any utility aside from tanking. But this isn't a school tier list. This is an Ice spell tier list. So the criteria. Spells were ranked on several factors, and the totals were added afterwards. I have formulas for 2 of the categories, and the other 2 categories are subjective. So I did have input, but a lot of the numbers I didn't have control of, and I didn't adjust any numbers afterwards. There were 2 ties that I allowed myself to break, but besides that, where the numbers said is where the spells fell. There's no debate about it. I just put them where I put them. So the spell's average damage per pip, which is to say if they have a range, it's the average damage they do, is compared in relation to Ice's damage per pip of 89.7, or simply 90. How I got that 89.7 is I took all the pure damage spells of Arc 1 Ice, 1 through 6, added them together, took that average, and I ended up getting 89.7. So that is, I believe, Ice's empiric damage per pip average. Life's would be exactly the same because all of their spells do exactly the same damage. That is Ice's damage per pip, on average. So damaging spells were compared to that. A spell's healing per pip is put in comparison to Fairy's healing per pip, which is 200, because that's a spell that everybody gets. Everybody gets Fairy, useful early on, falls off. You know how it is. Everyone knows how it is. But I mean, arguably, if you get that Arch Mastery gem socketed, or if you... Which I wouldn't even say that's, like, necessarily meta-knowledge to know where it is, but if you don't know where Arch Mastery is, it does become a lot more difficult to utilize it. But if you do that, then you can Fairy for 1 pip, which is pretty good. It's not bad. With a life pip, of course. But, you know, especially for Ice with their limited tools, it's not terrible. But that's the comparison for that. Spells that neither heal nor hurt were given an average rating in the prior categories, as to not allow them to fall behind. DPP was scored on 0 to 100. If you were the exact damage per pip of the school, 90, which a great example of that is Evil Snowman, does 240 to 300. The average of that is 90 damage per pip. You would get a 50 in that category. How I get that is I take that 90, I divide it by 90, so I get 1, and then I divide it by 2 to get a percentage, which is 50. So 50 points. Healing per pip is the same. If you are over 180 damage per pip, which is to say when I divide it, you're over 100, or over 1, which is 100, you would just cap out at 100 points. Absurd damage is its own thing, but I'm not giving that much extra credit, of course, and a lot of them are situational, but yeah. So That's how the damage per pip was derived. Healing per pip, exact same way, exact same formula. So the average of those categories, because if you're healing, you're not doing damage. If you're doing damage, you're not healing. In the school of ice, which is why I started with ice. So you were only ranked in one or the other. The average then is 50, so all spells that don't heal or hurt were given 50 in that category, completely for free. Does that save ice utility spells? Not really, but I guess we'll see. And then variance or unreliability in a spell's damage or healing was also considered. A great example is Frost Beetle. Frost Beetle does 65 to 105 damage. To get from 65 to 105, that is a 60% increase in damage. That is incredible variance. And generally speaking, as you go up in pips, one of the caveats of that is you become more reliable in the damage thresholds you hit, and so on and so forth. If a spell had a variance over 25%, then they would receive a 0 in that category, because that is a balanced blade's worth of difference. That is a massive difference to consider when you're hitting. And it does impact a lot when we're talking about Wizard101, we're talking about multiplying damage. So to not have that 25% boost greatly and exponentially impacts your ultimate damage. If you have a Ice Blade on, an Ice Blade buffing a 65 damage Frost Beetle is very different than a 105 damage Frost Beetle, because you're losing that 60% multiplier. So yeah, if you're a whole Balance Blade's worth of damage, you'd receive a 0. For every point you are less than 25%, you would receive 1 point in that category. So a spell with 0 variance, which is to say it does static damage, would receive 25 points. Spellments were considered, but they might be mentioned. Spellments were not considered, sorry. But they might be mentioned, because a lot of spells' endgame relevance is due to spellments, but if you're in the endgame, good luck grinding for them, which we're not, so... but yes, so next criteria is how relevant a spell is to when you receive it, and how prevalent it will remain after you receive it. So when you get that spell, how useful is it? And then how useful does it stay as you progress? Great example, Frost Beetle. I mean, when you have Frost Beetle, what else are you going to use? Wand hits? I mean, you might use like the Fire Cat or Thunder Snake wand hit or the Imp. All the other ones do less damage than Frost Beetle. So, I mean, you may as well, right? But yes, relevance. Frost Beetle kind of loses that as the game progresses, so you know. But they received a 0 to 100 in that score. And then there was a score specifically for utility spell provides. Also 100 to 0. Even just straight damage can be its own utility. But this is mostly for spells that do more than one thing. The School Golems are a great example. They do 3 pips worth of damage for 4 pips, so their damage per pip is quite low. But they also give a set shield. And since you're doing that at once, that's a utility. That's value. You're putting multiple effects into one card into one turn, so you do pay a premium. So how useful is that trade-off? We'll see. It's a per spell basis, but they were given a 0 to 100 in utility as well. AoE spells had their DPP multiplied by 2 when calculating them, as you are nearly always hitting the 2 targets minimum. I mean, if you think it's unfair, let me ask, what's a better spell, Tempest or Judgment? There's your answer. Would you rather 3 pip Sunbird 1 enemy, or 4 pip Meteor 2 enemies? That's your choice, I suppose, but I mean, it's the meta. That's the meta of Wizard101 PvE, is AoEs are good. Single targets still have their uses, especially on ice, where a lot of your AoEs will not ever kill a boss, at least in one spell. But yes, I mean, AoE spells were given a multiplier by 2. The Mirage spell was excluded. I mean, I put that on the slide for that spell, but because you're literally dividing it, so you're not multiplying your damage, but whatever. Lore spells were judged as if they were crafted in a playthrough, which even that's not very realistic, because you need Amber. But that is to say level 75-ish in the Avalon, except the ones that can't be crafted, which are special cases. You have to go farm skeleton key bosses and stuff like that, which, I mean, that could be a huge contention or a problem, but Most of them are mid anyways. Don't worry about it too much. It is what it is. So we have the tiers. So it's 2024, so of course it'll be tiered as well. When I crunch the numbers, I put them in order of least to greatest, and then I split up those scores into tiers based on essentially empirical grouping. I did very much opinionate that. Where they are in the list is completely out of my control. But where they are in terms of tiers is, there's one good example, but I mean, I did that one to save face. We'll get there when we get there. But the list is from the worst spell to the best spell, and the tiers are ordered too. The car score, which is essentially their total calculation per my standards, will be displayed as well. We're doing non-TCI spells, so by my count, we have 43 spells to do, excluding blades, traps, prisms, etc., etc. Because, I mean, every school gets those. They're all useful. I mean, if you want to experience a school without a prism, play balance. Ooh, it's a game changer. When you need them, you really need them. But yeah, hypothetically, they could score from 0 to 325, but no spell's perfect. I think the highest score is 305. And no spell got 0. But yeah, you know, enough of the preamble. It's only been 16 minutes. Jesus. But, you know, this is my opinion, sorta. I mean, I made it objective as possible, and I mean, you can disagree with my criteria, my rankings. Hey, that's good. That's comment food, guys. Like, I want interaction and stuff. I want that sort of stuff. Do I have hot takes? I mean, I'd say so, except this is an ice list. But yeah, no rage baiting here. Actually, no, I do want to rage bait real quick. This music in the background is from Pokemon X and Y, the best Pokemon game. Nah, just kidding. It's black and white too, but I do like X and Y a lot. But yeah, you know, if you like this, subscribe. If you want the other schools to occur too. This was purely a passion project. I woke up from a nap one day and I was like, you know what? I want to do this. And it was purely because of Frost Beetle. I was like, Frost Beetle has such terrible variance. I calculated it in my head. I was like, that's over 60%. So I'm a math major. So I got excited. I was like, oh man, I can create a Google spreadsheet. It's going to be great. I've had a ton of fun with this. And at the end of the day, I just kind of like talking about Wizard101. I've been playing it for 14 years, guys. So, you know. But yeah, my ice is level 42. So do I have all these spells? No. Because ice sucks. I hate playing on my ice. I like the spells. I like that they're blue. That's cool. But man, I'll play on my ice for 2 levels. And I'm like, man, I miss Orthrus. I'm going on my myth. Man, instead of like casting Reindeer Knight, I miss my real Deer Knight, and so on and so forth. But hey, if you want the other schools, like, subscribe, comment, give me some interaction, and you know what? I'll think about it. I don't even know what my YouTube name's gonna be yet, but enough preamble. Let's just get into the list. So, F tier. Cap. Clap, clap. Clap. Clap emoji. F tier. I unironically do like 2 of these spells, but even I can admit that they suck. You know, every spell has some use case, but they're as niche as niche gets. They're not good. Is any spell unusable in Wizard101? No, but these are so unoptimal or so niche. They're just bad. These spells need a buff. They are failures. They are bad. Don't use them, of course. Unless it's for fun. Because, hey, guys, it's a family game. Which is to say, a children's game. But most of the children have grown up and are adults, like me. So, I mean, you can. It's up to you. If you're playing ice, you're already under that mentality. Because, like, you chose ice. But whatever. First spell. Clap emoji. We got Thieving Dragon. I mean, listen, I love this spell. I really do. I like this spell. Cool animation. I mean, it's stolen, but it's a cool animation. I love ice having a dragon. That's kind of cool, because we've seen ice dragons in the game, but dragons are associated with fire because of the lore. But I was like, oh man, this is cool. This is cool to have this. But man, it's so bad. It's so bad. Like, I didn't even write down notes because I knew I could just rant and ramble about the spell, but I mean, let's break this down mathematically. So we are doing, let's be generous and say Snow Serpent damage and stealing a ward. The order is important. You steal and then you hit. That is fantastic. That's great. The damage per pip is unsalvageable. It's so bad. It's so bad. You put those effects together, you get 3 pips worth of value. You're doing them in 1 turn. You could argue that's 4 pips value, but the DPP is so terrible. If it stole a shield and then did 200 damage, I could see it. You know why? Because think about it. Ice Wyvern, 4 pip spell. If you're hitting into a tower shield, that'll do more damage. You could say, oh, it's the utility of stealing a shield. No, dude, you have Steel Ward. You're ice. There's no excuse. Steel Ward is actually great because there are a lot of cheating bosses that will put universal shields on for a certain condition, and if you steal that ward, a lot of them do not replace their ward until they're attacked. So Thieving Dragon will steal that ward, attack them for terrible damage. Like, you can put an epic on this and good luck doing over 1,000 damage. It's so bad. But since you hit the boss, they're gonna replace that shield, and I mean, hey, you stole their shield, that's cool. You could have done that for 1 pip. You could have done that, saved up your pips, built up blades. Why would you ever do this? Why would you ever do this? It's bad. It's so bad. I keep 1 copy in my deck because it's a fun spell, but man, top 10 most discarded spells of all time might be. I mean, something's got to get discarded, right? But yeah, it's bad, dude. It's bad. I don't know what else to say. I mean, I broke it down mathematically. I talked about the use cases. It's bad. Spellment Path. It's fantastic. Too bad you're not going to get these spellments unless you pay money. Dweeb. Or do Beast Moon, which I mean, like, ugh. Meh. I'm good. If I want toxic, Wizard101 gameplay, I'll go play PvP. I don't. Meh. But yeah, you get the spellments by some insane means. Maybe you buy them. Because, you can buy them now, which is great. I'm actually happy about that. Then Thieving Dragon's bottom path is actually quite good. And Aura Pop, that's good. It's also great to mention, too, that this spell has bad variance. To get from 120 damage to 150, you're talking about over a 20% increase in potential damage. Yeah, good one, guys. Shoot. It's just not good. There's not much else I can say. I love this spell. I really do. Like, it hurts me to put it at the bottom. And yeah, you can see it scored 38.75 points. Most of those were from the damage per pip category, and its damage per pip is awful. That says so much. It's so bad. I don't know. Next spell. Cool. I wrote this slide so long ago. Cooldown. Listen. Believe it or not, as a Wizard101 gamer, I do have a girlfriend, and I was showing her this as it was still in the works. And I showed her this, and as I flipped to the slide, I forgot cooldown was a spell. I did that again! I made this presentation yesterday. I showed it to her yesterday. I woke up today, the next morning to record this, forgot the spell existed. That is cooldown in a nutshell. A lot of people consider this the worst ice spell. I can see it. I can see it a lot. Like, I really can't even say that they tried. Mass Triage is a spell from Avalon. Cooldown is a spell from Avalon. What the hell, guys? Like, what if it was, like, 3 pips, and it took all the ticks from allies and put them on, like, a single enemy? Like, that would be cool. That'd be an interesting idea. That's like a shift, but... Well, wasn't shift 3 pips? I can't remember. Honestly, that'd be balanced in today's meta, but that'd be an interesting utility. It'd be an interesting tech. No. There's no reason to ever use cooldown. Just buy a mass triage, like TC, put it in your side deck, get a life pip. Why would you ever use cooldown? Let's forget mass triage exists for a second and think about cooldown isolated, because I'm just looking at ice spells, but... What is this? What is this? What is the point of it? Is it for when me and all of my friends get, like, Fire Dragoned? Well, Fire Dragon does more on the initial hit. So, I mean, removing a singular tick is going to save, like, 90 damage, if even. I don't... Like, what am I supposed to say? A Rain of Fire. Oh no, world's scariest spell, Rain of Fire. Remove 1 tick of Rain of Fire from everybody. I mean, that's great. Tick of Deer Knight. That's 90 damage saved. but, you know, also mitigation exists, so it's not 90 damage. I mean, I guess in that specific use case, it's better than Legion Shield, but, like, listen, guys, if you go second, you get hit by DOT, so you take a tick, and then you want to cooldown, you're taking that second tick. So, hey, cooldown is now the same as Mass Triage in terms of value, except one is 1 pip and one is 2 pip. But you could just Mass Triage with a life pip. And Mass Triage is a niche spell with a very rewarding use case when it occurs. Cooldown is Mass Triage if it just didn't try. That's exactly what it is. It's that kid at school that got C's in all the classes because, like, yeah, I mean, I guess they passed, but they just did not try. What else do I say? Like, cooldown is bad. Why would you ever slot this in your deck? You're an ice. So what if you take a tick? If you have a storm friend who's about to take a tick of damage, I'd rather give him a absorb. I'd rather give him a shield. I mean, I guess cooldown gives you more value than a Legion Shield technically, but, like, I don't know, dude. There's so many better uses for a turn because you're using a pip, so you're not gaining a pip that turn. You could have bladed your friend for a pip. You could have bladed yourself for 0 pips. You could have shielded them for 0 pips. There's so many better uses of a turn than cooldown. I would even argue that passing is better. Removing a singular tick. If you're a life in your first and, like, all your friends just got hit by a damage over time, I mean, if you're first, you'll take that tick, and then you could remove the tick from all your friends. Hey, that's great. That's niche, but it's great. You know, that's cool. If it was a Rain of Fire, that saved a good bit of health. Maybe if it was a Basilisk, maybe you just saved a friend from some pretty good damage. What is cooldown supposed to do? Like, why? I don't get it. You want to remove a single Fire Elf tick from everybody? Oh, man, that'd be great. Because, I mean, it's AoE, but, like, I don't know. And isn't Triage free? Maybe Triage the singular is 1 pip, but, like, I don't know. The difference between 1 pip and 2 pips isn't that much, and that's why I'm saying cooldown is so bad. There's just no use case. If you want to use it, I guess so, but, I mean, we're talking Avalon here, guys. If you really want to mitigate everyone's damage, you've had Legion Shield, which is pretty good. Or, I mean, you could Shadow Sentinel, I guess, and that'll mitigate more damage than cooldown will. But, I don't know. It's just bad. I'm moving on. I'm done. Here's this one. This is the one that I think, and personally, is my pick for the worst spell in the entire game. Like, Celestial Intervention is terrible. I'm definitely not the first person to have told you that. Everybody knows it. It is bad. It is terrible. It is awful. Celestial Intervention is one of the worst spells ever. I mean, I could tell you to read the text, but, like, I don't want you to do that. It's so bad. It's just like, guys, I don't know. I mean, this is, like I said here, is a memorable spell because it's so bad that you remember it. Cooldown, I've forgotten 3 times in the past, like, 24 hours. That's saying a lot about cooldown being a forgettable spell, but, I mean, Celestial Intervention's bad. It's so bad. So, I mean, like, let's just break it down. 4 pips. You know what's a 4 pip heal? Satyr. Satyr is more accurate because shoutouts to 75% accurate heal. Grendel Amends, who are you? But Grendel Amends actually heals consistently. Bad, but consistently. Celestial Intervention. Why would you use this? You can use it for life because you can crit your own healing spells. Or you can use it on ice because you can crit your own healing spells. But why would you? I mean, like, crit's nice and all that, but you could just Satyr. You could just Satyr and that'd be pretty good even without a crit. You're healing 860 for 4 pips. I just don't get it. I don't get it, guys. If we're going to Gambit shields, which, hey, Ice likes shields, but they also like using shields, as in, like, putting on a tower shield to tank a hit, or Legion shields to tank a hit, or set shields to tank a hit. You know, they like that to tank damage and to essentially leverage their bulkiness and just kind of work off of that. Celestial Intervention says, I mean, hey, if you have leftover shields, maybe if you're running elemental spiritual shields in your side deck, which, hey, you can, then you can use them for something. I don't know. At that point, like, if you're going to do that, you may as well just, like, not. It's not a good use of a turn. There's no real benefit for it. I don't know. I'm like running out of ways to say it's bad. A conditional heal. Are there any other conditional heals in the game? I mean, they're conditional heals via spell elements, but like, this is bad. If you're second as an ice wizard, you kind of just can't. You can't reliably heal with this. If you're getting the maximum value of 690 per shield, or 690, you sacrifice 3 shields, then you know that's great. But it's a self-heal too. Like, guys, what? Max 3 self. Or is it sacrificing? I don't even know how this spell works, guys. It's so bad. Do people use it? No. There's like a spellament path that's like, okay, I guess, but like, even that, it's just like, Dude, I don't know what else to say. Like, it is my personal pick for the worst spell in the game. And I mean, it just kind of proves my criteria sucks for ranking things, because technically you can heal, you could do something, you could gambit shields, but why would you? Satyr exists. Use Satyr if you want to heal on ice. If you don't, I don't care. Like, you don't really need healing on ice for the most part. Just like leverage your shields, tank the hits, take your time. Healing is great, and that is nice. Sometimes you need that. Maybe you're sitting on extra pips. That's what Satyr's for, guys. Archmastery exists. Just get those life pips. Fairy exists. Just get that life pip. It's so bad. And I mean, like I said, the healing per pip is bad. It's under Fairy's average. It also has terrible variance, because it could heal 230. It could heal 460. It could heal 690. It could heal nothing. And like I said, if you're second, you kind of can't control how many shields you have. Because if a shield's broken by an enemy, you just lost 230 healing. And if you were going to crit, then you lost even more healing. So I just don't see the use case. It's bad. Such is life. It's bad. It's bad. I mean, like, what else do I say? It's bad. Freeze. Okay, so freeze. Freeze is a funny spell, because they give this to you as your first, like, school-specific spell that you get. And I mean, just in comparison to all the other schools, Ice got shafted. And I mean, it's a really good way to, like, prepare you for Ice's playthrough of just like, mediocre spell after mediocre spell. This is great. Fire gets their blade. Death gets their trap. Myth gets a decent minion for early game. Storm gets a niche spell that has its uses early on. Balance gets elemental shield. Life gets a actually okay spell, like a decent little bit of chip healing that scales pretty well once you can like have outgoing and crit. It's not bad. Freeze is just like a waste of a turn. It had like some potential for an early game niche, because you get it at the same time you get your level 5 spell of like, hey, maybe I'm fighting a rotting fodder on Triton Avenue, which has 150 HP, so I definitely want to 2-pip it. Maybe you freeze him, and then you hit him. That's great. But they also gave it 70% accuracy. So, with the starter wand, a quarter of the time you'll just fizzle this anyways. And I mean, your ice, even early game, you have enough base HP to just tank the hit and move on. I guess it saves you the animation, but the freeze has its animation too, so it's just like, I don't know. Stuns suck. They scale terribly. No boss can be stunned. Do you want to stun a standard enemy? Like, not really. You're spending a turn to get rid of one of their turns. It doesn't really do too much. If you're fighting in a group, then maybe freeze is like niche, but at that point, you rather blinding light or choke. Which, I mean, hey, those are from other schools and stuff, but like the TCs of them are decently common. It's just bad. Like, yeah, even in PvP, you rather, like, Myth Banshee to break a shield or something, because even in PvP, if you freeze them, you're just giving up a turn, so they give up a turn. So then, what does that do for you? You get an additional pip to hit with, I guess, if they have DOTs, or you have HOTS, you can leverage those a little bit, but I don't know, dude. I mean, it's freeze. It's just like, why would you ever slot this in your deck? It's just waste a turn to waste their turn. That does nothing for you. They're like, the smallest utility is it lets you build up DOT damage safely, but I mean, even that's just like, why? You could just be blading that turn or something. I don't know. Guys, it's freeze. 60 points. Freeze. Bad. Speaking of bad, Angry Snow Pig. So, I mean, like, I was debating putting this card in E tier, and I, like, opened my eyes and looked at it. I'm like, no, it's where it belongs. Like, Thieving Dragon is a fun spell, but, yeah, Thieving Dragon has 33.7 damage per pip. So, I mean, this spell is objectively better. This spell is bad, don't get me wrong, it's terrible. It's in F tier for a reason. You do decent damage. We're talking, like, 25 more than Evil Snowman damage, and then you steal a ward. The reason why the order was important on Thieving Dragon is, like, you take the shield and then you hit. It's like hitting through a shield, and you get their shield. Now it's you hit them and you steal a shield, which, does that have its uses? I mean, like, I guess so. How often are bosses gonna have shields that, like, don't directly affect them? If you're hitting a tower shield, congrats, you broke the shield, and then there's no shield to steal. If you're hitting any school but ice, I mean, like, I guess you hit them, that's great, and you stole their shield, but, I mean, bosses usually shield what they're weak to. Like, once you get to Arc 3, they'll use set shields, which they don't use the schools of, so it's just kind of like, it's just bad. I mean, you're just getting a utility for less damage that does not much. I mean, it's 4 pips. For 4 pips, you could be Ice Wyverning, and that does more damage minimum than this spell's maximum. So, I mean, cool. I guess if your opponent has 2 tower shields somehow, you can break one and steal the other. Or at that point, you could just DOT and do more with it. I don't know. There's, like, not much else to say. It's Angry Snow Pig. It's bad. Alright. Took a little break, because, wow, I mean, that F tier took a while. I mean, I also did that in Israel. I thought this was going to do all this in, like, one sitting. I don't think that's the case anymore. I'm not sure if my throat can take that, but we are to the E tier. You know, these spells have, like, some use at some point. And, I mean, like, some of them don't even seem too bad, but that's why they're here instead of F tier. They are bad. And some are just outclassed. They escaped F tier, like I said, because they have some niche use, but, you know, it is what it is. They are here for a reason. But that's why I have an E tier. Also, the grouping and the numbers, it just seemed like I wanted one more tier between F and D, so I made an E tier of, like, yeah, these are, like, bad spells, but they're not awful. So, yeah. Starting off, we got Ice Armor. Now, this is a spell that I think a lot of people would consider absolute garbage and maybe F tier warning. It has some small niche. This spell is why they conceived Celestial Intervention, because, like, Ice doesn't have a heal, so they, like, try to give them something equivalent to a heal. Ice Armor isn't. It's an Absorb. But, man, this is probably, like, the worst X spell of Arc 1. It's bad. It's real bad. It being self-only sucks, and 125 per pip is just not a good ratio. It's just so understated. You could use it as an alternative to healing early on, but I don't know, man. Because, I mean, let's say you don't have Arch Mastery, you have 2 power pips, that's 4 pips as Ice. Would you rather have 500 armor, or would you rather heal 400? It's a legitimate question. It's very niche. It's bad. I mean, my Ice has Arch Mastery, so I would just get a life pip, but I don't know. It's bad, but it has its niche use cases early on, or I'd say like mid-ish, before its upgraded version comes. Like those level 30-ish kind of periods where, like, I don't know, only healing 400 kind of only puts a dent in Ice's maximum HP, and Armor/Absorb has the niche of being preemptive. So, I mean, you could be full health, hit up an Ice Armor, so now you have a ton of health to work with, but why do that? I mean, just like, if you're going to use a bunch of pips on Ice Armor, just use a bunch of pips that hit the enemy and the fight, and then the HP pool doesn't matter, because you can just go grab some, like, Wisps or chug a potion or something. I mean, it's bad. I mean, especially if we're thinking of, like, the X spells of Arc 1. This one is the worst. Old Anime was worse, but I mean, it was so funny. It was so funny, like, building up 14 pips just to summon, like, Was it Death Incarnate? I can't remember, but it was just like a Lord Nightshade reskin that started with 1 pip and would just sit there and cast like Dark Sprite every round. Like, oh man, this is great. What did 14 pips get you there? A 1400 HP minion. That's awful. What does 14 pips get you here? 1400 plus 25 times 14 health. That's arguably a lot better. At least, like, yeah. And hey, 90% accuracy, why isn't 100? I don't know, but it's better than Celestial Intervention. And yeah, one day they're cooking in Kings Isle in Austin, Texas, and they're just like, man, I don't know. Ice could use a heal, guys. You know, we're making these mid-series of Celestial spells. Let's just make, like, the worst one possible. And they gave Ice a quote-unquote heal. Like, yeah, okay, guys. Because, I mean, like, what else was in the Celestial Spellment pack? Tribunal? I mean, it's okay. It's fine. I'd rather just use Spectral Blast, Tavaha. Nautilus? Yeah, okay. Was there another one? Oh, Ship of Fools. Yeah, that's, like, the only reason people actually, like, cared about that pack, because Ship of Fools. But, I mean, yeah, we're talking about Ice Armor, not about Celestial Elemental pack. Spellmental pack, excuse me. I mean, this is just... It's bad. It's really bad. It's really bad. There is an argument for it being an F tier, but I think it has such a niche use case where, like, the spells in F tier are never to be used. I could see somebody using it. There are worse things you could do with your pips, like Thieving Dragon. It is where it is for a reason. So, E tier it belongs. The Burst in E tier, so almost F tier. Taunt with 70 points. Like, I really like this spell. I like Taunt, and I have a copy of it on my Ice, but it's just bad. If it got the Donate Power treatment, it'd actually be quite useful, because you're spending 3 pips to taunt all enemies on the following turn for 1 round. Taunts, mechanically, are kinda suspect. So they have been changed so that taunts force enemies to target you. But if you get hit by an AoE, everyone still gets hit, which... as you get later into the game, those become more commonly used by enemies. But yeah, if you get hit by an AoE, your taunt does nothing. If your opponent passes or blades himself, your taunt does nothing. For single target hits, you can tank those, and that's good. It has its use, but I don't know. It doesn't do enough. 3 pips is bad. Just spend the turn shielding. If you Legion shield, that's 2 pips less. And that's probably going to do more for your friends. I mean, Tower Shield's free. There's so many better uses than Taunt. It's bad. Donate Power used to be, like, pretty bad. I want to say niche, but it was just bad. Donate Power got buffed, so now it's just 1 pip to give somebody 2 pips. If Taunt was 1 pip, I could see that. Maybe that breaks the game where you can Taunt every round, but I really don't think it does. You're just forcing aggro onto you like a tank in, like, a MMORPG. Hey, that's what this game is. And, you know, then it's up to your healer to keep you alive, so your damages can do damage and so on and so forth. So then you could have a tank, a support, a healer, a hitter. That'd be great, right? But as of right now, Ice just, like, doesn't do anything. Like, Taunt is just... Man, if it was 3 pips, like, maybe it's a high cost, but, like, you get more return. If it's 3 pips for 2 rounds, it would be quite a bit higher, but it's just not good. It's bad. It just could do nothing, and paying 3 pips for that's a lot. You could say, oh, a Tower Shield can sometimes do nothing, because they hit you with a DOT or, like, a rank 1 spell. And then it's still doing something, and it's free. That's the important part. Taunt? Oh, man, let me taunt my enemies so that I get hit by an imp instead of my friends. You may as well have just given them a Tower Shield. It's not good. It's bad. It's really bad. It's very bad. Blighthound. This one hurt, because I actually really like Blighthound on my Ice. The reason why is because I have Spellments for it. I did some Mushu questing, I did some side questing, my Storm's been farming Elemental Spellments, and that makes the spell quite good. On its own, it's fair. It's alright. I really like the Hounds in general. Heckhound is one of my favorite spells. Stormhound, if you ever get to use it, is a great spell. But man, I don't know. It's unfortunately a 5 pip Ice spell, and Ice has a lot of those better alternatives. I mean, like, on its own, like I said, it's really alright. It just kind of has the Phoenix problem of, like, why would I use this spell? Phoenix on Fire is another spell that's, like, quite good. It has good damage per pip. You know, it's fairly statted. But just why would you use it? It's kind of, it's in this weird case. Phoenix, I would argue, has more of a use case. Ice, if you're at 4 pips, you can use Wyvern. If you're at 6 pips, you can use Colossus. If you're at 5 pips, you can use so many more things. Fire, not quite as bad because they don't have a 4 pip single hit. But for 5 pips, I don't know, Fire has some more interesting options and utilities. And then for 6 pips, you have Elephant. So it's like, yeah. Blighthound is fine. I think it's the most okay spell on this list so far. Its problem is, like, yeah, its relevance. Once you get other 5-pip spells, which, hey, you get one before this spell, it kind of falls off because its damage per pip is fair, but not fantastic. The variance is kind of suspect, too. I don't know, man. It's kind of tough to justify. It's an unfortunate case. It kind of falls off really fast, too, because you get it at 32, Colossus is 42, which is... Or, you get it at 33, Colossus is at 42, and before Blighthound, you get Frostbite. It's a sad state of affairs. For that Mushu period, it's not bad. It's decently useful, and I mean, my Ice has it up to tier 4 in terms of spellments, a lot of spellments for it. And hey, that makes it pretty good, because that spellment path makes it more and more consistent, so it's like 480-ish to 510-ish? I don't know. It's somewhere around that ballpark, and I mean, hey, that's pretty good. That's not bad. On its own, in its vanilla form, it's cool. I'm glad they introduced it. I think it was really fun that they gave schools, like, some hits that they were lacking in before. Not that they really needed them, but, you know, I thought that was cool. You know, Gearhead for balance, Earthwalker for life, so on and so forth. That's cool that they did that, but, I mean, unfortunately, Blighthound does just kind of become outclassed. It's a shame. Speaking of outclassed, we have Evil Snowman, and, I mean, if this was my list, which it is, but if I chose where they go, I would have put Blighthound above Evil Snowman, but, I mean, there's not much to say with Evil Snowman. The variance is deceptively bad, even for the time you get the spell, and the benchmarks are just awful for when you get the spell. So, like I said when I explained variance, Evil Snowman is the capital, just, like, showing that off. Because the difference between 240 and 300 is 25%. Is it over? No, I think it's exactly 25%, is it not? 10 would be 24, 20 would be 42. Half of 12 is 6, that's 48. Oh, wow, is it 30%? It is, isn't it? It is, it's about 30%. That's crazy, man. 24, 24, 24. That's 72. Okay, it's a little bit under 30%. Maybe it is 25 then, I just did the math wrong. Whatever. But the variance is deceptively bad, and these benchmarks are just absolutely terrible. It has use when you get it, but once you get better hits, you'll never run a copy of this spell, ever. It's bad. It's so bad. It's so bad. It's just, yeah, it's bad. When you get it, it's okay. Arguably, I would say Blighthound is better when you get it. Evil Snowman, the benchmarks, like, really cannot be understated how bad they are. 240 is just 1 point below the 245 benchmark, which you don't see too often, which is good. But yeah, it's like, you can hit 300, but it's very much not in your favor to hit 300. So if an enemy has 295, 285 HP, you sometimes hit it, you sometimes don't. You might say, well, just trap beforehand, and absolutely, but I mean, I don't know, it's just such a weak tool. It's like that starting dagger you get at the beginning of a JRPG. It's kind of garbage, but I mean, you gotta use it, right? You gotta use something. And as you get further in the game, you're never touching Evil Snowman. If you have a new pip as an ice, there are so many better ways to use it. So many better ways. They have so many good 1-pip utilities, 5-pip hits that you rather just wait a turn for, wait for another power pip, and then do something with that. it's bad. I mean, what else do I say? Enemies that have 395 HP. Funny thing, Trap into Evil Snowman will never kill them unless you have some damage, which, hey, at level 10 you probably do, but Ice Gear gives so bad damage early on, like really bad. So even then, it's a roll to hit a 395 enemy and kill them, because, hey, Ice doesn't get their blade until 38, and by the time you have your blade, you have way better hits than Evil Snowman. Way better hits. So, I don't know, it's just the benchmarks are awful. Its consistency is bad. I don't know, if I just want to kill a 285 HP enemy, I can't just Evil Snowman. I'm always going to have to trap beforehand. And hey, that's not a huge issue, but at that point in the game where you're fighting two enemies but you don't have your AoE, you might want to trap an enemy, kill the other enemy, and then use that trap later. You can't do that with Evil Snowman. You don't hit the benchmarks that you want to. And like early Croc, oh man, you feel that with those 285 HP enemies, and so on and so forth. It's just not good. It's bad. It's just, I put not much to say, but here I go, just rambling anyways. It's bad. Spellmint Path. It's not half bad. Spellmint Path isn't half bad. Too bad you won't have them. Dweeb. Unless you, like, grind out, like, second half of Crocotopia side quests, which, I mean, like, I guess you could. I'm trying to beat the game, not stall the game, so, yeah, I don't know. Snowdrift. Yeah, so Snowdrift and Snowman are tied, but I gave Snowdrift the edge just because it's like, I might run a copy of this spell later in the game for fun. And it's a really cool tech, but it's really hard to make use of in PvE because many bosses don't heal, and the ones that don't heal over time, they just burst heal. But it does have its niche uses versus like occasional regenerates you'll see in Arc 2. You could on enemies that Pixie or Sprite, but I mean 72 is so late to get this. It's kind of hard to get use out of it, but when you do use it, it's very gratifying to essentially negate the healing of that enemy and take it for yourself. Very, very nice. Really cool. It's 100% accurate. They didn't, like, do any BS, like, oh, it's stunned 70% or anything. It's 100% accurate, always goes off. It's fun. It's fun. It's good when it works, and when it works is, like, 3% of the time, if even. But hey, if there is the potential to use it and you get it successfully, it's pretty nice. It's not bad. I can think specifically in Azteca, some of those life enemies will regenerate, and they can crit the regenerates. So if you Snowdrift and steal that, that's a good chunk of HP. It's not bad. But yeah, Snowdrift, it's just kind of like hard to find the use for it. Actually, you can find the use for it, but it's hard to get the use for it. So if you do, it's great, it's gratifying, but on its own, it's very hard to justify placing it any higher. But hey, 34 is a good bit away from 43, so there were worse spells. Some people could argue that this spell is deserving of F tier, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree, but I don't know. The reason why is because 75 points, 50 of those are just from being a utility spell. So yeah, didn't say Snowdrift, but or cooldown, but Snowdrift is here. I'm happy it's here. I love the card art Snowdrift. I think it's a really cool flavor for ice to kind of like not like dismantle the healing like death where you mitigate the healing. Ice is kind of like, I'm just gonna pull it to myself because I don't really have internal healing, so I'll take some of yours. That's fun. I like that. And we got Ice Guardian. Ice Guardian also arguably is too high, but yeah, minion spells are iffy, but it has some uses in Arc 1, where Ice arguably needs the most help with DPS. And this minion is actually DPS focused. It's really interesting how they made some of the Arc 1 minions. They're there to usually complement your school, but more often than not, you rather just feint a boss for 1 pip and then hit them with something else. But this minion has its own advantages. It's a spell I enjoy using, but I can't deny that it does suck. The minion in particular, I don't have the minion stats, but I know of them. Ice Guardian has 400 HP, which is fairly low for a minion. But what this minion does is interesting. So it predominantly uses ice versions of storm and fire spells. So it'll use ice lightning bats, ice storm shark, ice snake, ice cat, stuff like that. It'll blade itself. It sometimes blades you, which you get the spell 10 spells before your blade. So that can be occasionally nice. And when you think Iceman, you'd expect like a bunch of tower shields and stuff like that. No, not really. That's not what he does. He just hits a lot. His HP is fairly low, but you are ice. You give him a tower shield, he'll tank one of just about anything from Arc 1. And sometimes, quite often not, the minion will be able to tank a hit without it. When you think of most 4-pip spells, most of them don't kill Ice Guardian. And then if it eats a 4-pip spell, you can think of that as healing for yourself, because it took that for you. And then there is the other spell later on that you can use on a minion when they have low health and get a very nice benefit from it. But yes, the Ice Guardian's not bad for what you get for 3 pips, which most minions are very good in terms of pip value, but this one's a little iffy, because it is quite possible for you to summon it and then it just dies to a bladed meteor or something of the like. But with the proper timing, the proper support and shieldings, I'm not saying go buy minion shield, absolutely not. It is not worth the point. But, you know, it has its potential. It helps with DPS, can tank a hit. For 3 pips, it's worth the value sometimes. Are you going to use this in minion fights? Never. Will you use it in boss fights? Yes. And when you're using it in boss fights, you're competing with just using a feint. So it's kind of hard to justify sometimes, but it has its uses. I think E tier is like the perfect placement for Ice Guardian. It is relatively bad, but has some uses, and it's fun. I mean, it is fun to see, like, you summon Ice Minion, which, like I said, you expect, like, Tower Shields, Legion Shields, maybe stuns or useless crap like that. No, he just starts throwing out storm spells, like, oh man, this is awesome. he hits hard. He'll put traps on the enemies, he'll blade himself, he'll blade you. Like, he can do a lot of damage very quickly. Because, yeah, he uses reskin storm spells. It's like, oh man, this is based. What? Ice sucks. Let's give their minion not ice spells. Like, awesome. That's awesome. If he was using, like, Snow Serpent and Evil Snowman, he'd be much lower. Much, much lower. Because you'd have to summon him for 3 pips. And then he would have to build up 3 pips to Evil Snowman. You could have just Evil Snowman twice. No, when you use him for 3 pips, he could Blade Trap Storm Shark in the Ice Form and be doing significantly more damage than 2 Evil Snowmans. So, yeah, he has his uses, he has his potential. He's fun. I like him. So now, we are finally to the D tier. We got fairly okay spells that usually have major flaws. Maybe they fall off, maybe they're situational, but they have their uses. You know, even late into the game, you might consider running 1 copy. This D tier is what most people usually feel is a C tier, but for me, I think D is meh the tier. C is good. That's what C should be. C, to me, should be like a 7 out of 10. D tier is like, eh, it's okay, you could, meh. A lot of them are just like simply outclassed, but that's also C tier, so I guess we'll get there when we get there, but D tier. We got Frost Beetle. I mean, Frost Beetle's like all reliable, it's a classic, but rank 1 spells have the innate flaw in their awful variance and damage, and as a late game, you just rather use a rank 2 spell for a cheap hit. It does have the niche of balance likes its noob pips, so maybe you have a noob pip left over, maybe you pip conserve from a 5 pip hit, and you rather, not empower, well, maybe you would rather empower, rather enchant, there we go, enchant a Frost Beetle hit instead of enchanting a Snow Serpent hit. Bonus points for being objectively the worst rank 1 spell as well. That doesn't count because I'm just looking at ice spells on their own and how they help ice, but you know, that's pretty funny how it is just objectively the worst spell. Other spells that sacrifice accuracy get better damage. Bloodbat is literally just better Frost Beetle. Scarab, Imp, Sprite, literally just better Frost Beetle. And the other 2 spells give up accuracy for damage, but a significant amount of damage. But yeah, their variance is terrible. Like I explained earlier in the video, 65 to 105 damage is awful. That's a 61 point, I think, like 2 or something % variance. I don't know. I crunched the numbers. It's really bad. It's really, really bad. if you compare how much damage 2 Frost Beetles can do versus how much damage 1 Snow Serpent can do, it's just awful. It really did pull it down, and Frost Beetle does fall off as the game progresses. I think it does have a lot of niche use, like prior Waterworks, where your Power Pip isn't so good. As an elemental school, your Power Pip doesn't get absurdly better from Waterworks either, so maybe running a Frost Beetle or 2 isn't bad until your Power Pip is perfect or near perfect around Exalted, and then once you get Pip Convert and Mirage, you might bring it back. You know, it's far from awful, but it is bad. Even when you have to use it, you really don't want to. The second you have Snow Serpent, you are not using Frost Beetle unless you absolutely have to like finish off an enemy. You rather trap and Serpent every single day. You rather do that, which I mean, hey, you have to wait till 7 for your trap, so I guess level 6 or maybe 6 and 7. I can't remember when they get their trap. You might use Frost Beetle, but no, it's bad. It's bad. Better than Snowman though. Much better than Snowman. I rather Snow Serpent. If that doesn't do what I wanted it to, I rather Frost Beetle afterwards instead of Snowmanning. Snowman actually has better returns overall than that, but you know what? I don't care. Now we got Ice Wyvern. Ice Wyvern is kind of why Snowman was in the prior tier, because like Ice Wyvern is similar to Frost Beetle, but just a little bit better. Because Frost Beetle has more of a use later on as a cheap hit, especially once you have Convert. But Ice doesn't. Yeah, as Ice does want Pip conversion, but until it does have Pip conversion, you rather use Snow Serpent as a small hit. And Ice Wyvern is here because it's just like exactly what you want Snowman to have been when it was Snowman. Because Wyvern just hits the perfect benchmarks for that part of the game, and then it just kind of retires early. Will you use it late game? You could run a singular copy. It's just kind of not worth to do so, even with enchants. You rather use another 4-pip spell, hint hint, or you might use Colossus if you want a better, bigger hit. If you want a smaller hit, you'll use Snow Serpent. Unfortunately, too, low pip spells get more value with enchants than higher pip spells do. Wyvern is in that awkward middle area where 4 pips isn't too much. That's 2 power pips, but it's too much to really justify being used as a small hit, as like a spammer or a cleaner. But like I said, it hits the perfect benchmarks for that time of the game. 22 is when you're hitting like Marleybone era, and that 395 upper benchmark is fantastic, especially when you hit it. But 335 is very reliable too. 335 with Trap always breaks 400 damage, and that's something you can depend on. So if you have 400-ish damage and then put on an Ellie Blade, you can kind of calculate it as if you're doing 35% more than 400, with the chance to do even more. So I like that. I really like the benchmark that it hits. What is 400 plus 35%? 540. So, you know, Trap, Ellie Blade, Wyvern will kill most everything in Marleybone very consistently, and that's great. Even into Mushu is quite useful, even as Blighthound becomes prevalent, because those new pips you really want for Elemental Blade as an ice. So, honestly, yeah, I think Ice Wyvern really deserves its spot exactly where it is, and you know what? Very much is great for when you get it, and it holes up, it retires once it's gone, and you know what? It deserves the retirement. Spellmint Path is cool. I kind of forgot to mention that with Ice Beetle. Or Frost Beetle. Frost Beetle has a fun Spellmint Path. Is it that useful? I don't know, it's alright. Makes it like kind of more relevant late game, sort of, maybe. I don't know. Gammeting like a shield that might be useless for a shield that's definitely useful. Like, oh, that's cool. If you have a spare shield, I guess. I don't know. But yeah, Ice Wyvern's great. We got Mega Taunt with exactly 100 points. So we hit triple digits finally in terms of points. Mega Taunt is like a step in the right direction, but it has the same inherent flaws as the base Taunt spell. I think 2 rounds versus 1 round can do so much more, especially in terms of overall consistency, because sometimes an enemy will just like pass, or they'll just blade or something, and then that makes them scarier on that following round. Now you have that following round, which is great. I think that can do a lot more for tanking bosses, especially for allies, and I feel it justifies the rather high pip cost, but I don't know. In my opinion, I think Mega Taunt should taunt for 3 rounds, and I think Taunt should taunt for 2 rounds. I think if it was 5 pips for 3 rounds of Taunt, which, by the way, is on another spell later, then I think it would actually be a really fun utility that kind of brings out that identity of Ice as the tank school. It just needs more. Like, let the Taunt effect force aggro as it does now, but also increase the threat as it used to. Because, yeah, for those who don't know, all enemies in Wizard101 start out with neutral threat. They just attack whoever's opposite of them. But as, like, a certain wizard does damage or heals more than other wizards, then they'll be pulled towards them, which you don't really see in a single-player playthrough, so Mega Taunt is already niche by default, unless you want to taunt off aggro for a minion, and that's kind of the whole point of the minion, is to eat a hit. But I don't know, it's okay. Yeah, is it okay? It might be a little worse than okay. I don't know. It's in D tier because it has its uses. I think, like, what I'm thinking of right now is, like, Darkmoor, and I could see some really useful uses of it in Darkmoor, of tanking damage for people that really don't quite yet have the health to tank. Like, Storm and Fire can quite easily be DPS down in a dungeon like that. And Mega Taunt, because Ice has a crap ton of health at Exalted. Even just with Waterworks gear, they have several thousand, like 6,000? I don't know, it's a lot of health. They have a lot of health. This can really help relieve some of that threat from your friends. It does a lot. It does a lot. It's very niche, but when it has its uses, it can be very useful. 5 pips is a lot to pay. I don't know, but it has its uses. Okay, now 29, we have Scion of Ice, and here's, like, a spell I forget exists all the time, are the Scions. Not because they're forgettable, but just because, like, man, I don't like using them. 11 pips is a lot to ask for in a spell. And, I mean, it is Ice's biggest hit, with shadow spells included, non-spellment. But the cost just isn't worth it, unfortunately. Like, the Gambit is very, very strong. Doing 1,860 damage for Ice is absolutely unheard of, but it's incredibly difficult to achieve. It's just not reliably set up like other Scions are, and your health is just kind of hard to control as Ice. You can mitigate damage, but you as an Ice are going to be tanking damage, and 10% is a threshold. This is non-PvP, so, like, I don't know why they don't buff it to, like, 60 or 50%. No, it's 90%. That's... I don't know, dude. A lot of bosses, especially late game, will start with a lot of pips, so they'll end up doing a small chunk of your health, or a big chunk, depending on the school, just to start off, especially once they have Pierce, like Arc 3. So, like, expecting to be above 90% is, like, not possible by the time you achieve 11 pips. It is, I guess, if you have a friend healing you, or if you specifically tailor your deck to, like, and set up to have healing and healing boost, like a Satyr. But Satyr's 4 pips, so, I mean, if you use a Satyr, I guess on max pip, then you could Scion out of it, but that's, like, really situational. There's so many things you could have done in the time it takes to get 11 pips. Ice has better, more efficient hits. It's not worth the price. And yeah, as I put here in the notes, Feint plus Lord of Winter is the same cost and will do much more. It'll actually do less damage than a conditional Scion, but it's more consistent. Much more consistent. And, you know, it's the same price. It's just not worth it. Scion of Ice, I don't know. Like I said, though, it is Ice's biggest hit. 930, even for 11 pips, is Ice's biggest hit. So if you need the biggest pip hit possible, if you're going for 1 in a million, a Scion of an Ice is the best choice. Just empirically speaking. Except for Spellment Paths. Wink, wink. But those aren't being judged. Speaking of Lord of Winter, we got Lord of Winter. You know, we're just talking about Ice's biggest hits. You know, here's the Azteca spell. The utility is nice, but, you know, for 10 pips, it's kind of hard to really capitalize on that utility. And, like, I don't know, if you're hitting something for 10 pips and doing that much burst damage, you're usually trying to kill them in one hit. So it's kind of hard to really capitalize on those -2 pips, but, like, I don't know. But like I said, the point of where the spell comes in Azteca, a lot of Azteca bosses can tank, like, a Lord of Winter, even with, like, 2 feints. So, like, I don't know, but you may as well just wait for a Shadow Pip instead of burning 10 regular Pips. Because Ice likes having, like, Pips to use on stuff. I mean, especially early on. But Lord of Winter is, well, I guess technically now mid-game at level 90. Like, Jesus Christ. Which, for this ranking, I did, like, as I'm comparing the data and stuff, I did show, like, the level that they were obtained. But Lord of Winter is funny. The quest for Lord of Winter is 88, but they made all the Azteca spells trainable at 84. So you can just get it 4 levels early. And that's a lot of time saved, especially at that point in the game. Man, getting that many levels at Azteca is such a grind. We're talking like half of Azteca. So, hey, cool on you guys, King's Isle. I'm not sure if that was intentional or not, but it was funny. But yeah, I don't know. In terms of big hits for Ice, it's about as good as you can get without a Shadow Pip required, and that has its utility, it has its niche. Well, I don't know. Do I prefer it over Scion? Yes, that's why it's here. But, yeah. And the variance looks bad, and that's because it kinda is, but it's not as bad as you think. 775 to 895 is like over 120 damage worth of variance, but per the percentile, you're within 20%, so it's not awful. Scion also got a lot of points reduced for its variance, because it literally has 100% variance, so yeah. But Lord of Winter is alright. It's one of my favorite looking spells. I mean, Triceratops are cool. Azteca spells in general are kind of like, yeah, do I really want to use 10 pips? Usually the answer is no. Lord of Winter might be an exception. It's not bad. And for Ice standards, it's pretty good in terms of damage. So it's okay. Lord of Winter, it's in D tier for a reason. It's fine. Yo, it's Freddo. All my homies love Freddo. I mean, it's just Ice Guardian, but like way better. The extra 2 pips goes very far, and Freddo can do a good bit of work for like what you put in. 5 pips is kind of an investment, as all the Avalon minions are, but Freddo's kind of based. Freddo very much, he's not the tankiest minion, which is interesting too. I believe Myth's minion is tankier. I think Death's is as well. I don't know Balance's minion by heart at all, but Freddo's not bad. He can do a lot of work for what you put into him. The minions do still fall off as the game progresses, but it is nice that you get him in Avalon. He stays relevant for a good while. I'd argue that he becomes more relevant after our 3 starts and the enemies kind of go down in difficulty for a bit. But at that point, do you really need a minion? Yeah, I don't know. There are better things you can do for 5 pips at the end of the day, but, you know, having a minion has its own advantages and disadvantages. And Freddo does have a particular niche for Ice, as will be discussed, yeah, pretty soon. 2 entries from now, yep. So, I mean, Freddo's great. He's a fine minion. He's just like Ice Guardian, but starts with better pips, has better health. He has resistance to Ice and weakness to Fire and Myth, which the Ice Guardian has no affinities whatsoever, which I'd actually argue is better, but Freddo's alright. He also has like an outgoing damage boost, 30%? I don't know. All the Avalon minions are pretty good. They're not bad, but minions are as minions are, and they fall off. So now we got Woolly Mammoth. This one, yeah, it did kind of surprise me, is like 9-pip spells, the Zafaria spells, are generally agreed to be pretty bad for the most part, but Mammoth's not alright, or not bad. It's just the numbers simply didn't lie. Mammoth has better damage per pip than Lord of Winter, and with less variance. So on average, per the pip, you're doing more damage with Woolly Mammoth, and you're doing so more often, which is great. The stun is useless, but the damage alone, especially for the time introduced, is quite respectable. Because, I mean, Zafaria is your level 68 spell, they're trainable at 72, but 68, pretty far in the game, and that's where bosses start becoming quite bulky, to the point where your 7-pip AoE might not take them out even with a feint, so strategy for boss fights usually is AoE, take out the minion, and then focus boss. And Woolly Mammoth fulfills that role very well. Your only other big hit prior to this is Colossus, and you are paying 50% more pips, but you're getting a lot of value from those extra pips. You are putting more damage into one source, which works better with feints, works better with blades, works better with traps. It is essentially your big hit as ice. You can replace it with Lord of Winter, but even that is almost 20 levels away. Woolly Mammoth is what is going to get you through Avalon bosses, Zafaria bosses, quite a bit of Azteca bosses. It is... I mean, I might sound excited, like I really love this spell. I really don't. But it's about as good as you're going to get for single target hits for ice at that time of the game, and it has a very respectable use. And I mean, it almost made it halfway up the list, which, like I said, this one kind of surprised me, because when I think of Woolly Mammoth, I think of a bad spell. I mean, it is. But in regards to ice spells, it's alright. It's not bad. I mean, compare it to some other 9-pip spells. Better than Dr. Vaughn, I would argue. What does life even get? Oh, Gnomes. Better than Gnomes. Wait, no, doesn't Gnomes heal you now? I don't know. Gnomes isn't bad anymore. Maybe. I still think Vaughn is. You could argue it's better than Basilisk, but I'm biased. What does Balance get? Chimera. Chimera is better. Storm gets Sirens. Honestly, I think Mammoth is better than Sirens, and that's a hot take. And then Rain of Fire, which, I mean, like, nobody will argue Woolly Mammoth is better than Rain of Fire. Rain of Fire is terrible. But yeah, you know, it's a pretty good spell, especially when you get it. It has its uses. After you get Lord of Winter, will you use Woolly Mammoth still? Quite possibly. The difference between 9 pips and 10 pips is like a thing. At that point in the game, you're not always guaranteed to get a power pip. So sometimes you will have new pips lying around. That's actually a good thing for ice, because they use a lot of 5-pip spells. 9 pips, if you want a big hit, it's there. It can be available 1 turn earlier than Lord of Winter, and that's a big difference. That's not bad. As ice, you're not really yearning for more turns or more time. You're usually fine. You have a lot of resist. You have a lot of health. You can play the game at your own pace. But in general, for this list, we're just trying to get you from the beginning to the end of the game, and this will get you there. Okay, now we have Draw Health. So this is Ice's only heal, in quotations, because Celestial Intervention does not exist. But this one is still situational. But 1 pip for 350 health is not bad at all. That's kind of cheating to think of it that way, because you have to summon a minion first. So at the cheapest, it's 4 pips total for 350 health. But I still think that's unfair too, because quite often your minion will take aggro if you're just sitting there and blading and stuff. Your minion can tank a hint, and then you can sacrifice it. So not only do you get the health saved from your minion taking a hit, but you also sacrifice it and heal yourself for 350, so that's not bad. But Freddo, like I said before, has enough health to tank several hits, so if you're running Freddo, running a Draw Health is not terrible. It's not bad at all. For 1 pip, it's a good chunk of healing, especially if Freddo is about to go down to like a damage over time. You may as well. It's not bad. It's not bad. I think a lot of people disagree with this because they just don't ever try the sacrifice or draw health or draw power spells. Well, it's because most of them are bad, but Draw Health for Ice has its niche specifically because Ice has so few healing options. And 1 pip for 350 is kind of absurd. That has inherent value. So, yep, that's Draw Health, 122.5. And then we got Frozen Armor. So this is what Ice Armor should have been originally. It's finally not self-only, so you can support allies. And I could see you doing that. If you were just blading up people, maybe trapping enemies and stuff, and shielding friends, you're building up pips, but you don't want to like ruin somebody's feint or something like that, you are not the hitter, I could see you using Frozen Armor. It's not bad. It gives armor almost equivalent to Fairy's healing per pip, and it's a nice buffer for a squishy friend. If you were, once again, Darkmoor, which I think some bosses will pierce shield, so not good, because that's the downside of armor. It's preemptive, unlike healing, which must be reactive, but it's a physical ward which can be pierced, and armor takes damage before your resistance is applied, I believe? I can't remember. I don't know. Is that right? I don't think so. Maybe it is. I can't remember. But yeah, like, you know, It is exploitable, like I said, but it could be a fairly decent use of your pips, and it's even solo, it's a decent solo heal, or pseudo heal, I should say. I mean, if you have 2 power pips, and you're not running Arch Mastery for Fairy, hey, that's not bad. What is that? 700? Yeah, 700 for 4 pips. I mean, it's still not equivalent to Satyr, and you can't crit it because it is static. You cannot crit this at all, so I'd say Satyr is still better. But hey, Frozen Armor, it's finally 100% accurate. Like, what? Why wasn't Ice Armor? It's so weird. But hey, like, yeah, if you have a Storm or a Fire, even a Myth, maybe, and they just took aggro, they didn't finish off the enemies, and they took damage earlier, so maybe they're about to, like, hey, I'm gonna flee, I'll be right back. If you have a Frozen Armor and can put, like, you know, a few hundred HP, if not a few thousand HP worth onto them, that's pretty good. It's not bad. I mean, if you were to think about it, 6 pips, with 6 pips give you 900 armor. That's not bad. It's not bad. It's not bad. It is unfortunate that you use all your pips immediately. It is an X spell, but it's a fairly decent utility. You can use it for yourself, you can use it for your friends, it interacts with your power pips by default, intrinsically, no Arch Mastery needed, no Mastery Amulets needed. It has its uses. Alright, now we're heading back into this. I thought this wouldn't be that long of a process, so I thought I could listen to Snowbell theme forever. The truth is I could, but I wanted to change a pace, and you know, I'm sure you as the viewer would like a little bit. This is Rhyme Doll theme from Bravely Default 2, a fantastic game. It's from my favorite chapter of that game too. Chapter 3 is amazing, amazing game, amazing series, love them. But that's not what we're talking about. We are talking about C tier spells. So we got out of D tier, those are the meh tier of spells. C tier are the decent tier of spells, if I were to say. You know, they're probably outclassed in some way, or maybe they're pretty good when you get them. But none of these spells are bad. They're not bad at all. I mean, most of these spells are here just purely from numbers. Say hi to Lord Master to me while you're here. Or Lord Master Hole, you are here. Nice typo, you know, I totally looked through this. Don't worry about it. Anywho. First spell, clap emoji. We got King Artorias. So, you know, it's a pretty okay-ish big hit from Ice. But, you know, I'd say this one's a tier above the previous okay-ish hits. You know, decent damage per pip with relatively nice utility. You know, not the spear, no one gives a crap about that. But, you know, you can always see this as a spell that is 8 pip hit that always conserves a pip. Because even pip spells don't conserve, because you're never going to conserve. You're always using the exact same amount. And that's actually pretty good, because Ice likes having those standard pips on standby for 5 pip spells, which they have many of. We've seen like 1 or 2 so far, and those are the ones that are just strictly outclassed, but we're about to see a whole lot more. The no variance in damage pushed it up a good bit, pushed it up 25 points. Having a consistent 650 benchmark is really nice to work with, and you know, that adds to the appeal of it. You might add a copy of this spell over something like Mammoth or Lord of Winter, which have a decent bit of variance to them. This one has no variance whatsoever. You know exactly what you're getting. They are cheaper. King Artorias is cheaper than those 2 spells. And I mean, for 8 pips, if you want a single target hit, what else are you going to do on Ice? It's surprisingly decent. And most of the King Artorias spells, I think, in general, are kind of mid for PvE. I know they have Spellment paths now that change them and stuff, but the King Artorias Ice is actually one of the better ones. But yeah, you know, it's not bad. There's not too much to say about it. It's decent. Even late into the game, I could see running a copy of it just as like a hit for 8 pips. You know, maybe you don't want to save up. Maybe you're not shadow pipping, which does happen. King Artorias is a decent hit. I like it. It's good. And we got Colossus. So, I mean, this is just another simple yet solid spell that comes at the perfect time. This is Ice's biggest hit until you get Mammoth. And Mammoth is, what, 68 at the earliest, 74 if you don't do the quest. And even then, Mammoth is 50% more costly in terms of pips. Colossus is just straight up 6 pips, 515 to 595 damage. The benchmark is beautiful for the time you get it. You're doing a consistent over 500 damage, and with Blade, Trap, Ellie Blade, you can consistently do math, crunch the numbers. and see about how much damage you're going to do. And, I mean, it remains relatively useful until, like, maybe Azteca, where you have, like, better alternatives at that point, but I don't know, Colossus is tried and true, simple is beautiful. If you have Spellmint's even better, hey, you know, I do, but, you know, it's great. Colossus is great, it really is. I mean, in the realm of ice spells, because, I mean, if you zoom out and look at other schools' 6-pip hits, I mean, this is objectively the worst one. I mean, if you want to say, like, oh, Wraith does less damage, Wraith is consistent in its damage, and it drains. So Wraith is, by default, 750 value versus whatever the hell this is. I mean, Centaur is accurate, at least. Colossus is 80%, which, hey, at this point in the game, are you going to have perfect accuracy? No. It won't be terrible either, though, because, you know, this is not casual playthrough, but it's not super grindy either. I'm expecting you to get at least Senator's gear from Olympus, and at that point, I think you get a good 8% accuracy or something from Colossus, and accuracy jewels to socket, Untrigold sockets, are not too uncommon. And I think level 45 socket gives, like, a respectable 5-6% accuracy. I don't know, it's a good chunk. My ice actually has great accuracy, but that's the pet jewel I socketed for early game, because yeah, it sucks fizzling, and my pet already had 2 damage talents and 2 resist talents, so I was like, you know what, I will take the accuracy early game. Later on, oh, you can believe that's going to be damage later on, but yeah, it's a fail pet anyways, or fail pet anyways. It has stupid fairy friend, so I mean, whatever, that's not what I'm here to talk about. You know, I had fun with my double pet XP benefit, woohoo, which I think is still going on at the time of recording this. It's still like the end of May, and today's the 28th. But, anywho, let us proceed. Colossus, getting sidetracked, you know, ooh, oh man, not professional. Ugh, this spell. The fact that this spell is above Colossus makes me so mad. I hate this spell. I hate Handsome Fomori. It might be like one of my least favorite ice spells, if not the least. But it's just like, yeah, what did Ice get from Lore Master again? Like, a bunch of decent hits? Cool. Like, I don't like this spell. I always rather just spend an extra turn, get another pip, use Colossus. And, I mean, the minus 25% Mantle may as well not exist, unless it's being used against you. Which, hey, quite a few enemies use the spell for no reason. And it's so dumb. It's better than a stun, I guess. But, like, I don't know, dude. Fomori is literally here just because of the numbers. What is its average damage per pip again? It's like 490, which is actually very good for Ice's standards for 5-pip. And its consistency is okay. 100 damage variance is quite a bit. And relatively, it did lose a lot of points for that. But yeah, I don't know. Cool, 25 Mantle, you might make your opponent fizzle, because, like, enemies can always fizzle, pretty much. But, I don't know, dude. Mantle is, like, one of those balance spells that, even on my balance, I'm like, no, man, I don't want to use that. I'd rather just, like, weakness, or do something more consistent. It just boils down to consistency. The damage is why it's here. It's just a decent 5-pip hit. Just looking at the raw damage, it does more than Blighthound, and it's not even close. So, yeah, it's a sad affair that Handsome Fomori made it halfway up this list. And yeah, shout out to the Spellmint path that makes the utility even more niche. Just like minus fire accuracy specifically, unless they change it. I'm pretty sure it's still that. And it's just like, okay, why? But why would you use Fomori? You don't. It's literally just for the damage. I guess you could use Fomori literally for the damage. It is what it is. The numbers don't lie as much as I wish they did. I wish I could be biased and put Fomori at, like, number 41. I don't like Fomori. I wish I could put Fomori at 43, honestly. No, I'd put it at 42. Celestial Intervention would be my number 43, but I don't like Fomori. I don't like the spell. I hate how he spits in his hands. That's gross. It's unsanitary. It's disgusting. I hate this spell. So, this was the second tie. Winter Moon. I mean, you give me any other spell in tie with Fomori, and I will 100% bias that and put the other spell ahead. this is Winter Moon. Winter Moon makes it to the top 20. You know, I did give it the edge for consistency, so I can pretend I'm not biased, but, you know, 555 damage for 6 pips seems mediocre, but it's essentially just a more consistent Colossus. The stun is useless, but, you know, it's alright. You know, it essentially is just a better Colossus. Ice does have very steep competition for a 5-pip spell, but, you know, at least the utility, I guess if you hit a minion or something and it doesn't kill for whatever reason because you're ice, then you stun them. Or Fomori, like, if you hit them and don't kill because you have 100 damage variance, you put a mantle on them and maybe stop their next spell. I don't know. I rather Winter Moon every single day. I know it's a 6-pip hit versus a 5-pip hit, but the 5-pip spells have such high competition that hurts Fomori, where Winter Moon is a 6-pip. So it has less internal competition. Pretty much just Colossus, I believe. And, you know, given the choice between Winter Moon or Colossus, it's probably Winter Moon, disregarding Spellmans. We got Deer Mouse Trap here, which, hey, this is cheating. This isn't a craftable spell. You gotta skeleton key it. I mean, we could argue about it all day. Deer Mouse Trap is mid. It's okay. It's like, what if you want handsome Fomori, but God smiled upon you? What if instead of, like, having a stupid mantle, you did a little bit less damage, were consistent in your damage, and got a very useful utility? Like, I didn't actually know how, like, decently useful the utility is until I happened to get it on my ice, because I was opening packs for, Whiteheart, which Whiteheart's not a good spell. I just love Whiteheart. But, you know, I opened packs. I got enough for Deer Mouse Trap, sadly. I was like, whatever, I'll make it on my ice. 410 for 5 pips. For, what is it, Blighthound's minimum of 420. Even just in that raw comparison, that's not bad. You're giving up a potential, or you're giving up a guaranteed 10 damage and a potential 70. And you're getting a 40 trap. And the 40 trap is universal, so allies can benefit off that, and I've seen that happen in practice. Some Mushu bosses, I would help out some people in queue, and you know, I'd go first because I'm ice. You know, I want to tank, and yeah, maybe my ally's been blading up, maybe they're about to hit, and it works as like a pretty good pseudo feint. You're essentially chipping the enemy for a good 410, while also applying a 40% trap. That's not bad. That's not bad, as long as you can utilize that trap properly. You know, as long as you're working with your team, you're seeing what spells they're using before you cast it. It's not bad. It's actually one of the better Divum spells, which is, yeah, Death might be better. Honestly, I think Deer Mouse is better. Life's is better. Whiteheart might be better. I love Whiteheart, but is it better or not? I don't know. It's better than the Storm one. The Storm one's so bad. It's better than the Balance one. That one's so bad. Nith one is like, yeah, it depends on who you ask. But, you know, like, hey, not bad, Divum. Not bad at all. Now we got Volcanic Golem. I believe this is the last spell of this tier. No, it's not. Oh, shit. Well, I just spoiled that. Well, these things happen. Volcanic Golem. Which is hard to talk about it after spoiling the next spell. But Volcanic Golem's an intriguing idea for a spell. These golems were interesting. They kind of just threw them at us. Of just like, hey, you guys want, like, your 3-pip hit, but with a little bit more flavor? It was like, I guess so. Because, yeah, you're taking a 3-pip hit with a 0-pip shield, and that seems bad, but the extra pip is, like, returned when you do them both at once. So you're essentially doing enough damage, especially late game, to just kind of break a shield, and then also get a set shield. The main problem with the golems is when their shields aren't useful, it's just not good, because you rather just use the 3-pip spell. Some set shields can be used for gambits, which is nice, but I rather just save the pips. And you know, it has its niche utility. It's fun, it is, but if you really want a shield gambit, maybe you have some spellments that are linked to them, which I'm not taking into account, you may as well just use the set shields, because that's 0 pips. If you want to consistently do that. But, you know, burning a weakness, breaking a tower shield, doing all that while also applying a set shield, it's not bad. But yeah, if the shield isn't useful for a set shield, there's no reason to use the golem. Whereas, like, if the set shield isn't useful, you might use it for a gambit. You could do that for golem too, but 4 pips is quite a bit to set up a gambit. But, you know, props for being significantly more consistent than Snowman. Even though, like, it's the same average damage, they took 15 damage to the minimum, and they took away 15 damage from the maximum. So it's 30 damage variance instead of 60. That's a huge increase in variance. And that did get Volcanic Golem quite a few points. It was great. And with Volcanic Golem, there's zero reason to run Snowman late game. You just run the Golem if you really want that kind of hit for that kind of pippage. You may as well. Okay, here's the one that I spoiled, which is Snow Angel. If you look at the numbers here, Snow Angel is a good bit ahead of Golem and is actually supposed to be in the next tier, but I know this is a hot take as is, so this is where Snow Angel is. I left it at the very top of C tier, even though it should have been B tier, but this is just a testament to how good AoE spells are. Because people hate Snow Angel so much, but it honestly isn't bad. It's just so outclassed and slow, and people hate slow spells. I mean, it made it this far because there is a potential utility of an AoE dot. Every school has a good AoE now, but few have ones that work as a lasting shield breaker. If you're facing, like, ice enemies and you want to help a storm not have to deal with, like, potential tower shields once they're done blading, it has its uses there. DOTs have their own disadvantages, of course, like not synergizing well with Feint, but some later bosses you can't feint anyways. So sometimes, like, a elemental trap, you both get benefit off of it, though 35 initial hit is absolutely pathetic. But that's kind of the point, is that the initial hit is bad and the overtime is good. The reason why this spell is good and Rain of Fire isn't, is because Rain of Fire is on fire. If you really want to hit everybody in DOT, Fire Dragon's right there, and Fire Dragon does more damage than Rain of Fire. Snow Angel is different. Snow Angel is ice, and for ice's damage per pip, Snow Angel is fantastic, especially including the ×2 multiplier for AoE. Even before that, 695 for 8 pips is surprisingly decent. What is 8 times 90? 720? So that's about what you're supposed to be for average. So you almost hit average as is before the multiplier. It's not bad. It doesn't have the taunt anymore, and I'm okay with that because the taunt had its own animation, if I remember correctly, and that took forever. Will you realistically be using Snow Angel that much? No, but, you know, if you're blading up for a 7-pip AoE or something of the like, and your opponent shields, I don't know, it has its utility. It has its utility. Because, yeah, I mean, you could steal the shield, hint, hint, but, you know, if you don't have one in your hand, or if you don't pack them, which, hey, you should, Snow Angel has its use. It really does. And per the damage per pip, it actually does more than a certain 7-pip spell. But people don't like facts and logic. They just like their game being fast, which, hey, that I am considering that to some extent, and that's why Snow Angel is here. So, this really is just a testament to how good AoEs are. But, realistically, Snow Angel should have been in the next tier, but hey, I'm not dying on this hill. I like Snow Angel, I really do. It has one of the coolest animations ever. I don't think anyone will disagree with that. Snow Angel has a fantastic animation. It's so cool. It's like it was like the Novus spells before the Novus spells were a thing. Ice's first spell that they get in Novus with a school pip of a different variety is a death pip. It's 3 pips and then a death pip. It's like icy and death and stuff like that. Like, it's kind of fun. Snow Angel, like, fits that better than that spell does. Like, Snow Angel feels like ice plus death. It's so cool and spooky looking. I love the animation. Oh, it's great. But animations don't count. We're looking at the facts. But anywho, we are moving on to B tier. Alright, yeah. Let's say I took, like, a small bathroom break, so the music probably desynced. I mean, I've been taking breaks, don't worry, but, I don't know, I'll take like a 2-second break. I'm like, man, I just want to keep talking about it. This really is a passion project. Believe me. The sad, annoying part comes when like I have to like edit this or whatever and like put it together. I don't know any of that, but whatever. I'm just talking about what I do know, and that's Wizard101. I say with a level 42 ice. But hey, I played a lot of the game, you know. I've been playing 14 years. Still haven't played Novus or Wallaroo. Ha 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 ha. But I know the spells, and yeah, you kind of can just take those at face value. Anywho, B tier. I don't know, guys, maybe Ice isn't so bad tier. Like, you know, there's some good spells with good use cases that won't let you down. They're not fantastic by any means, but they're strong and sturdy. They are useful. They are, you know, spells you probably will pack in your deck. You might have a few copies. You might only have one copy. You might use them for certain fights, but not others. They are good spells. They are not bad relative to Ice. And yes, the Snow Angels should have been in B tier, but I wasn't pushing that any further than I already did. So, hey, speaking of Arc 4, long time no see. What's up, Novus? I mean, it's deathly depths, man. I mean, like, what do you want me to say about this spell? 5 pips, 535 damage? I mean, it's just damage. I mean, it's great. It's simple as beautiful, but I mean, it's just Colossus damage with a cheaper cost and perfect damage consistency, which did give it some points. Getting a school pip is a little cringe, but hey, you know, at that point of the game, if you're at Novus, you should be getting school pips fairly consistently. And it's very good for Ice's typical damage per pip. The rating does go down quite a bit because of how late you get it and how it fares in comparison to some of those late game spells, because a lot of them are disgustingly powerful. And we haven't seen really any late game spells yet, because quite a few of them are very strong, very dependable. You know, I say late game in quotations, some of them aren't really even late game at this point. Deathly Depths this is your spell for going to Novus. And I mean, hey, it's not half bad. It doesn't really bring anything new to the table. It is just pure damage. It is a 5 pip hit, which, hey, I mean, if you have like a maxed out Spellmint Blighthound, this is about equivalent to that. So, you know, it definitely has its use cases. It's good. You know, I'd put a couple in my deck if I had one. But, you know, it's alright. It's aight. Now, here we go. Snow Serpent. See, now we're getting into the real good stuff. Snow Serpent is a good card. Rip its old Spellmint path, because, man, I always wanted that, but couldn't farm Spellmints back then because it was so arbitrary. But yeah, Snow Serpent, we're getting into the good stuff. Like, Snow Serpent would have been higher, but it does have bad variance problems. Variance in general is mitigated as you go on in the game, because if you put an enchant on it, the variance will naturally go down. But that's just mathematics, guys. But Snow Serpent, when you get it, it does have variance problems, but it does hit the benchmark you want it to, which is 150. All 2-pip spells are designed around that 150 benchmark so that you can one-shot Rotting Fodders. Now, you can one-shot a Cyclops on Cyclops Lane with something like Lightning Bats or Fire Elf. Not going to happen with Snow Serpent. And it also won't reliably happen with a Trap. If you hit high-end with Snow Serpent, you can do 235. But if you hit 155, add 30% to it, I think you guaranteed break 200, but you don't break 235. But yeah, I mean, Snow Serpent is arguably more useful than Snowman, even when you get Snowman, and Snow Serpent stays relevant due to its cheap cost and how powerful Sun Magic is. Because, yeah, I mean, and this is pretty much universal for all schools, their 2-pip hits stay relevant. Especially with Spellmint paths, some of them have fun techs like Fire does. Snow Serpents is intriguing, but I kind of, even on my ice right now, just prefer the damage path, and I think I will late game too. And yeah, I mean, it's a good spell. You know, 2 pips, solid hit, solid damage, makes a good cleaner, makes a good chip tool, makes a good finisher. Minion killer, you know, it's fine. It's not bad. It's good. It's very good. Even if you want to say, or even to some extent, you could say it's a cheaper taunt, because if you enchant Snow Serpent hit something, you're probably going to do enough damage to pull aggro from some enemies. Sometimes not, but sometimes you will. So yeah, we are top 15 now. I didn't even notice that. We're top 15. We're into the real good stuff now. Snow Serpent is great. Might be my favorite 2-pip spell on animation base. I love Snow Serpent. I love how it looks. I love when it spits up like a snowball and just chunks it at people. I actually preferred its older animation. Maybe controversial. But yeah, I love Snow Serpent. I love its animation. Its old spell myth path was hilarious, where it just like gave you 2 small absorbs or something, and they're like, huh, maybe that's not healthy for the game, but yeah. Snow Serpent's great. I love Snow Serpent. It's awesome. Okay, now we got Frost Feather. So, I mean, you can maybe hear it in my voice. I'm a little happier now. We're talking about these good spells. So Frost Feather has DPP tied with Thieving Dragon. That's the bad news. Everything else about it is great. I say, it's just... It could be difficult to justify that spell, literally the worst spell, versus Frost Feather that's all the way up here in B tier. But the utility Frost Feather provides is so much better. Frost Feather also has perfect consistency, which doesn't really matter too much because of the low damage. But you are doing a consistent 135 compared to Thieving Dragon's questionable 120 to 150. Just make it 135. Just make it static. So earn points off of that. And most schools hitting bubbles are nice. They work as good shield breakers or chip tools if you don't have anything better in your hand just to put your bubble up or something. Most schools, I rather just use a bubble for 2 pips instead of hitting and bubbling, but, you know, ice needs every bit of chip they can get, and breaking shields is a nice utility. But yeah, I'm going to say ice gets exceptional value out of their bubble, because every bit of damage means so much to ice, and bubble is a great way to get reoccurring beneficial damage. A trap and a blade only work once, and hey, if you're going to one-shot something, you don't need anything else, but, you know, easy to say if you're a fire or storm or something. Ice, you can one-shot stuff if you, like, really prep, or you could just, you know, hit a couple times, maybe a few multiple times, play on tempo, and Frost Feather is really good for that. So yeah, to potentially break a shield, burn a weakness, do some chip, and set up a bubble, it's just all in one turn, by the way, is invaluable. It's great utility. You know, I think if you're setting up a bubble and breaking a shield at the same time, you're getting your value's worth. Whereas Thieving Dragon, you would be taking that shield and then doing some minor damage. Putting up a bubble is a powerful effect that is worth 2 pips. That is static. And giving this spell slightly less than 2 pips in damage, I think is perfect. Because that makes it like 3.5-ish pips worth of value, but you bundle it together, and I think that justifies 4 pips. Thieving Dragon is like 2.5-ish pips of value, maybe 3 if you round up. I don't think that's worth it. Frost Feather is great. A lot of schools, their hitting bubbles are just kind of okay. You know, their damage is never great. I'm thinking of like Myth right now with Rat Magician. Sometimes I use it to break shields, but I rather just pure bubble. I rather pure bubble and build up the pips. Storms actually does a decent bit of damage, so you might use it and kill a minion. But yeah, most schools hit and bubbles. Oh, and then also Fire. Fire has a good hit and bubble, sort of asterisk, if you go craft it. It's also 5 pips, but, you know, or balance, God forbid. Ooh, a gaze. Is it gaze? I can't even remember what that spell's called. That spell's so funny. But yeah, it's good. You know, I'm just like rambling now, but yeah, Frost Feather's great. It's a great spell for Ice to have. It really helps Ice to have this spell too. And it's level 45, so my Ice doesn't have it yet. But my Ice runs Balefrost, and I could easily see myself take out 1 Balefrost for a Frost Feather. Just to, hey, burn a weakness. Yeah, you're in Dragonspire, you will have weaknesses, and burning weaknesses is great. Enemies will tower shield if they are Ice, and breaking a tower shield so then you can prism afterwards, that's nice. It's got a lot of utility, it's all packaged up together. What more needs to be said? B tier, it's a perfect place for it. Now we got Legion Shield. I'm gonna say, like, and this is a surprise. Legion Shield, this is one of the most underrated spells of all time, I believe. I mean, if you're soloing, it is awful. I wouldn't even argue that. I'd say if you're soloing, it's, like, questionable. You could do better things on your turn, but I'd still put it, like, E tier. if we're talking about soloing. It's beyond the crap of F tier. But if you're in a group, we're talking like dungeons, Darkmoor farming, Waterworks farming, so on and so forth, this spell offers insane mitigation for the price of a singular pip. Minus 45% to everyone is a lot, especially once enemies start having pierce and your resistance starts getting pierced. Having a shield on top of that ensures that your innate resistance is untouched. So it's like Death's Plague with a substantially better return. Sometimes. Plague gets better as pierce becomes more relevant, but Death's Plague has always just kind of rubbed me the wrong way of like, it's okay. Minus 20 weakness, I kind of wish it was just a little bit more. Legion Shield, you pay the same 5% penalty to make it AoE, and you pay a pip, which is important. But I feel like minus 45% mitigation's quite a bit, especially for the price. We're talking like even just 2 tower shields, I think is worth it. If we're talking 3 or 4, it's a fantastic spell. It's great. But yeah, as I stated prior, Ice likes odd pip spells, so if you have pip conserve or pip conversion, and you use this with power pip, you generate a new pip. That has its use. If you're using 5 pip spells while you have 6 pip, generate new pip has its use. I mean, it's just a really nice support in an otherwise pretty stagnant school in terms of support. Ice, your support is taunting, and we already talked about that. Because I think like the most comparable thing to Legion Shield would be Virulent Plague. And Virulent Plague is great, but it's 2 pips. And generally speaking, that's not an issue, especially for Death, who usually prefers even pip hits. Legion Shield being 1 pip means you can pip conserve on that, and then you can use that new pip for something else. So, I mean, overall, Virulent Plague is better, but Legion Shield's not bad. It's pretty good. I like it. I like it a lot. And it being your Grizzleheim spell is pretty cool, because most Grizzleheim spells are like atrocious, like really bad. Legion spells like a shield, like you might consider doing Grizzleheim before you could do Winter Tusk, of just like, you know what, that's not a bad idea. I'll go get that. I'll use that in Dragonspire. I'll use that in Celestia. Which, me personally, I always do Winter Tusk before Celestia, but, you know, a lot of people do Celestia first. But, yeah, I mean, Legion Shield's great. It really is. It's a spell I really like, so maybe a little biased, but yeah, Legion Shield's fantastic. Do be careful with it, though. There are some bosses that have cheats proc when you use wards. You don't want to, like, give yourself a ward just so a boss can steal it, but it's the same thing with, like, blades and so on and so forth, so I'm not really counting that. But yeah, Legion Shield's great. Next, clap emoji. We got Steel Ward, which, hey, look at this point differential. 190 to 215. Like, is Steel Ward too high? Maybe. But any veteran will tell you when Steel Ward is useful, it is ungodly useful. Like, just, yeah, exactly. I didn't even put notes in here because I'm just going to ramble about it. There is one boss in particular I can remember in Winter Tusk that just for whatever reason, like, shields himself. I can't ever remember why, and it's like a 65 tower shield, and for that point in the game, you don't really have pierce. And, like, I can't remember if you can damage over time him to make it easier. I'm pretty sure he just replaces it whenever you break it. Steel Ward, I'd say, like, 80-90% of the time when a boss cheats and puts on a universal shield, if you Steel Ward it, they don't come back. Almost always. The problem with Thieving Dragon is you steal it and then hit them, which usually triggers them to reinstate that shield. Steel Ward does not do that, and there are some bosses that will still do that and will still reinstate it, which is unfortunate when it happens. But when Steel Ward is useful, it's so useful. Steel Ward is a spell that I quite often will have on other schools in a treasure card, just because if an enemy tower shields, hey man, that's pretty annoying. I gotta either break it with a wand hit, and if I have like traps built up or blades built up, I don't want to burn those. I guess I could use a damage over time, maybe. Maybe I could pierce. Steel Ward just ignores all that and says, hey, that ward they have, it's really cool. Why don't you take it? And I mean, it's just very useful. Thieving Dragon is not useful because what are you going to do? Steal a tower shield from probably an ice enemy and do no damage? Steel Ward is 1 pip. That tower shield is now yours. That's good tempo. That's as if you broke the shield and cast one on yourself at the same time. Except you don't get any damage, but you weren't going to get much off of a 1-hit anyways. Especially like once you are no longer using the Hasta, or always if you're using the Hasta as fire, because it's the same school as you. And if you use the same school 1-hit, you have blades built up, traps built up, you don't want to burn them. You'd rather just hit through the tower shield at that point. Steel Ward says, hey, tower shield looks really nice. I'm going to take it. Yoink. And 1 pip is such a fair price for this. If it was 0 pips, I think it'd be absurd, but 1 pip, it's a pretty powerful effect. I could have seen them made it 2. Where like fire has steel charm, significantly less useful. Because essentially you're just hoping for a balance blade or a fire blade, and that's all you benefit off of. Steel Ward only benefits if your opponent has an ice shield or a tower shield, I suppose. But I would say tower shields are more often to see on enemies than like a random fire blade or balance blade. I don't know, I might be wrong on that, but Steel Ward is just so useful. So useful. It's great. It's great. For 1 pip, it's great. If it was like 3 pips, it would be awful. But 1 pip, it's great. You know, like I said, some spells will get bonus points if other schools use them. Steel Ward's a great example. I'll usually put like 2 or 3 TCs in my side deck for other schools. Just like Storm with Cleanse, I'll do that with other schools. Steel Ward's one of those utilities. It's like, yeah, it's really nice to have when you use it and it helps you. It's really nice. What's his face? CT Snaketail, I think, does the whole ward thing with like 90 wards, I think. And I think Steel Ward gets around that. I can't remember, but I'm pretty confident it does. So, and hey, even if it doesn't, you pretty much just pay to pip for a 90 shield, and that's sometimes worth it. Sometimes it's not, but hey, it's not bad. It's great. I'm enough rambling about Steel Ward. And to wrap up our beats here, we have our first Shadow Enhanced hit, Shatter Horn. So, I mean, like, Shatter Horn is a good spell. It's actually a great spell that's just overshadowed in its base form. It's still impossible to deny how powerful Shatter Horn is as a hit, but the utility is sadly niche. You remember Taunt that I said was 5 pips? There is another spell that taunted for 3 rounds. That's this spell. It's Shatter Horn. Except it's the same cost, but a Shadow Pip, which is a big difference. But it taunts for 1 extra round and does a ton of damage. I think we're talking like 860 average? 850 average? 855? I don't know. But fantastic spell. And, you know, the taunt is nice. It's nice utility. But yeah, it just kind of does crave that Spellmint path to make it 6 pips and make it stronger and stand out. Because, yeah, it's on its own for the time you get it, it is outclassed out of the box, especially if you're solo queuing. So, it has its uses. I love it. I enjoy it. But unfortunately, this is as far as Shadowhorn goes. Shatterhorn goes. Alright, another day, another recording. My voice probably sounds a little bit better because, frankly, I was getting tired yesterday. I did a lot of talking. But we're just hopping right back into it. The song in the background we got playing is Memory or Memories from Persona 4 Golden. It's the final side dungeon that you have to do for the true ending. The dungeon sucks, don't get me wrong, but man, the music, banger. Da 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 da. Really fun syncopation. But anywho, we're not talking about music, we're talking about A-tier ice spells. We're getting to good stuff. These are good spells that you'll often use, and many of these spells are so good that other schools like would like to have them. If there was like an ice or their school version of an ice spell, they might use it. And by that I mean there's one of them that all schools might actually use and want to use. But, you know, these spells earn their placement. So, I mean, per my terrible ranking system. So, let's get into it. Number 10. Barely broke the top 10. If we look back, Shatterhorn was under 230, and that was my threshold, 235. Climaclism is you know, for the most part, Mirage spells get a bad rap for being, well, bad. So, you know, but Ice kind of stands out. Ice is a school dominated by 5-pip hits, and to have a useful alternative at only 4 pips is actually pretty good. If we look here, 432 for 4 pips in a shadow versus 470 to 590, 790, Jesus, to 910 for 5 in a shadow. So you're paying a good bit of damage for 1 less pip and consistency. You're always hitting a consistent 732 damage, and that's fantastic. So, I mean, if we just look at Shattered Horn, yeah, as I said, you get that consistency, which is really nice, and you are spending 1 less Shadow Pip. You also lose the utility of Shattered Horn, but, you know, for what it is, it's not bad. I mean, 732 damage for 4 pips at the end of the day is very, very good, especially for Ice's standards. It's fantastic. But yeah, like I said earlier, the AOP DPP multiplier did not apply to the Mirage spells because you literally divide the damage when you do that. So yeah, it is what it is. But I mean, it's just a solid 4-strike hit that, you know, if you don't have that new pip, because maybe you used it on another odd pip spell, maybe you only have 2 power pips, Climaclysm's a fantastic alternative. It still hits hard, it's fairly cheap, it does its job. It's a very nice single target hit. And I mean, if you compare it to something like Woolly Mammoth is a great example. We're looking at fairly similar damage for 5 less pips. And that's what a Shadow Pip is supposed to be ranked for. But in all earnest, by the time you can save up enough pips for Woolly Mammoth, you probably have a Shadow Pip by then. There's a chance you don't, but that's another reason why Climaclysm's so good, is because it's the cheapest Shadow hit that Ice has. So, non-spellments, which I don't even think you can do the spellments that reduce the pip cost anymore. I don't think that's a thing anymore. But it's your cheapest Shadow hit. So if you're low on pips but have a Shadow Pip, maybe you hit something with something else and your actual pips are low, but you have a Shadow Pip, it's a great finisher. You know, it does a lot of damage straight up. Put an enchant on it, you're hitting 1,000 damage. It's fantastic. Even a Colossus, it breaks 1,000 damage. And that's a fantastic benchmark. It's great. It's consistent. It's fantastic. That is Climaclysm. Which, yeah, most the 4-pip Mirage spells really aren't that great because they have better alternatives. Climaclysm's not bad. It stands out. Life's isn't bad. Yamasu, because those are the 2 lowest DPP schools. Deaths is okay. Balance is okay. Fires is like not that great. Storms is pretty good. Am I forgetting one? Myths is okay, I guess. Climaclysm kind of stands out for actually being something that school needed. Most of the other schools have alternatives that they rather use, unless you're Life. Which Life does get alternatives eventually, but nothing even pip that you would want to use in the same way you'd want to use Climaclysm. But yeah, you know, that's enough talking in circles about Mirage spells, because we're just talking about Climaclysm. And Climaclysm, in my opinion, is the 10th best ice spell per my rankings in the definition of ice spells. I feel like I need to reiterate that because it's a different day for me, but everyone else that's been listening, I mean, it's all put together, but you know, a time travel. Anywho, we got number 9, Tower Shield, and I mean, we all knew Tower Shield was going to be up top at a very nice spot. This is tried and true classic PvE, PvP, does not matter. Tower Shield is great. I mean, this is just the king of ice utility. It always has been too. Since the game's launch, Tower Shield has been a thing, and it's been fantastic. Tower Shield is a spell you get before Ice Blade, because that's what they want you to do is ice. They want you to tank and support more so than hit, and the game encourages you to do that. But Tower Shield is probably the only ice spell that most other schools actively want to train into, because Tower Shield is Frost Beetle, Snow Serpent, Volcanic Shield, I believe that's what it's called. Yeah, Volcanic Shield, Snowman, and then Tower Shield. So that's 5 training points to get Tower Shield. for what is a universal minus 50% incoming. That doesn't sound like a lot, but believe me, it is. When an enemy boss can tower shield, that exponentially reduces how fast and consistently you can grind that boss. Because that's a lot. You're taking 600 damage, it's now 300. That's a big difference. For what is 0 pips, you're almost getting a fairy's worth of value. And that's the important part, it's 0 pips. It's a fantastic pip building tool that allows you to essentially play defense while playing offense. You're building pips so that you can do more offensive things while also reducing the damage you take. It's great. I mean, there's nothing to really complain about here. I mean, the only weakness to Tower Shield is its single target, but the advantage over Legion Shield is that Tower Shield is 0 pips, and there is a big difference between 1, 2, and 0 pips. So, you know, it's Tower Shield. What else am I supposed to say? It's great. It's tried and true. Okay, now at number 8, we got some more interesting stuff. We got Freeze Ray. And some people might feel Freeze Ray needs to be higher, but at the end of the day, it is a shadow hit, and this is a shadow AoE. In general, I think shadow single targets are better, because if you're fighting a boss, you're likely to AoE to hit the boss, clear that minion, and then once you go back to hit the boss with a single target hit, which by then you'll probably have a shadow. Freeze Ray is very, very good, especially for ISIS standards. In fact, it's actually pretty comparable to Raging Bull, I believe, from Fire. But at the end of the day, it is an AoE shadow hit. Are you really going to run this in a fast deck over, you know, Frost Giant, Blizzard, these more consistent spells? Probably not. You might run a copy. That's something my Fires recently ran into, where I stopped running Raging Bull on my mob deck because the shadows aren't always consistent. I rather just have 2 copies of Fire Dragon and a copy of, like, Meteor than one of each. But, yeah. The reason it's below a lot of these upcoming spells is due to its consistency. Its damage range isn't terrible by any means. It's a respectable 80 damage. But when we're looking at some of these higher up ones, they have 0 consistency issues whatsoever. So having an 80 damage range, which is about 70% of that, not 70, 10% of that initial volume, a little bit more, it does lose some points in that, you know, factor. But, you know, the necessity of a Shadow Pip kind of holds it back, but this is just, bar none, the best AoE for Ice, right? Is it not? I mean, we looked at Snow Angel a bit ago. Snow Angel didn't do this much, and it was 8 pips. Snow Angel also wasn't a Shadow Pip, but still. I mean, if you compare this to Blizzard, this is what, like, 3 Blizzards worth of damage? If not more. Blizzard times 3 would be like 250 minimum. I mean, that's pretty good. Yeah, 250 to 870. Or 750 to 870 is what Blizzard would be. I mean, that's equivalent to 3 Blizzards all in one package. I mean, even if you want to say a Shadow Pip's worth 5 pips, that's 11 pips versus 12. And since it's in one package, it works better with traps, it works better with feints, it works better with blades. I mean, this is just like one of those tools that Ice loves having, and they just really wish they got earlier. Because it is a good spell. It's a very nice crowning spell for your Shadow Enhanced spells. Of just like, hey, listen, we know that we gave you the same Shadow spell twice, essentially. And then also one that we'll talk about later. So, hey, here's just like, you know what? If you have a Shadow Pip, have a great AoE. I mean, if you have the Shadow Pip, this is better than Orthrus. It's better than Max Tier Stormlord. You know, this is good. This is real good. Ice needed this. Ice needed this, like, way earlier. But maybe they didn't need it too much. They did get another tool, which we will be talking about fairly soon. Not quite yet, though. So, yeah, at the end of the day, fantastic spell. Good spell. Does a ton of damage. It's just a shame about the availability, and it does lose some points for the variance and the necessity of a Shadow Pip. So here we go. Speaking of Shadow Pips, we got Abominable Weaver, and this is what I'm talking about with Shatterhorn. It's the exact same damage and cost as Shatterhorn, but you trade the 3-round taunt for a tower shield on yourself. If you look at those effects isolated, a 3-round taunt sounds more valuable than just a tower shield, and that's absolutely true. But the fact that you're hitting and then shielding is completely different. You are hitting and then also making a defensive move, which, I mean, we're not considering any past versions of this spell, but good God. If anybody remembers the Exalted PvP meta, Jesus, oh man, it was disgusting. It was just Frostbite into Weaver, into Weaver, into Weaver, because Weaver did like a 970 minimum or something crazy like that and gave you a 75 shield. It was like, okay, I guess we want Ice to be good. Also, Ice had like 2,000 HP more than everybody back then. But this is the pinnacle, in my opinion, of single target Ice damage. Great cost of 5 regular pips and a Shadow Pip. By the time you're buffed up to hit a boss or a single target, you probably have your Shadow Pip. And like I said, it's the same damage as Shatterhorn, but the utility is much more universally applicable. When Shatterhorn is nice, like you want that taunt, you are working with friends, then, you know, I might do that, but this is the more selfish counterpart. And generally speaking, I think you're soloing most of the game unless you have a friend or family member you are playing with. And even then, you know, you can always just swap them out at will. Maybe you run mostly Abominals, you have like 1 Shatterhorn in your deck. I mean, it's great. I mean, what do I say, guys? It's Abominal. And also, of course, Abominal is available significantly earlier at level 100, more or less 101, because you level up by the time you get it. But, I mean, it's Abominal Weaver. What do I say? If you were there, like I said, for the Exalted PvP meta, you know of the horror stories that was like Exalted Ice and Exalted Fire, because they were just hilarious. They were not okay. They weren't. But yeah, all the original Darkmoor spells got nerfed in some way or another. This spell, Weaver, was counterparted with Hungry Caterpillar. Caterpillar got gutted. This spell got like minorly nerfed. They both got their damages touched, and I mean, who cares? They're still crazy strong. Abominable Weaver got, instead of a 75 universal shield, which was just way too much, got put down to a 50. That's pretty fair. Life went from like a 800 damage, just like straight absorb, to like 300 over like 5 rounds healing. It's bad. But whatever, we're not talking about life. We're talking about Ice, and we're talking about Abominable Weaver, and Abominable Weaver is great. If you want a single target Ice hit, this is where you go. Unless you want number 6 here, Frostbite. Like, Frostbite is just tried and true. It's given nice and early on. Has insane damage per pip for Ice, and even stacks up well against like Fire to some extent in terms of damage per pip. You know, compare this to Phoenix, and this is not bad. It's not bad at all. There's no variance in damage. The DOT is very effective for shield breaking, or just straight up raw damage. Because like I said, Ice loves their 5 pips hit, and Frostbite is just like the best example of that. It's great. It really is. Unfortunately, I can't put Frostbite in S tier as much as I love it, due to the nature of dots and with feints. If you want a single target hit with a boss that's probably going to one-shot that boss, you're going to use Abominable Weaver. You're going to feint stack. Ice is great at feint stacking to their large health pool and resist. Frostbite's like if you have blades and you want to get around an enemy shield, which does happen. Then yeah, I mean, it's fantastic if you are early game, because they give you this spell really early. I mean, it's just exceptionally powerful for that point in time. What are you going to do for 5 pips? Blight Hound and maybe do 420 damage? It's 420 to 500. I mean, it's not too much variance, but that's a pretty important threshold. 435 is a big one. I can't remember if enemies hit 495 as a threshold. They might. But Frostbite just blows that all out of water. A consistent 575 damage base is so nice. Where you can just shield. You don't even need blades. You can just toss a Frostbite on an enemy and it's dead after a few rounds. It's great. It really is. I don't know. I mean, I could talk about Frostbite forever and how much I love Frostbite. And I mean, back in the day, I was a Fire Elf lover. Before they buffed it, I was like, guys, Fire Elf's amazing. And then they buffed it, and everyone's like, oh, it's so great. I'm like, it's always been great. But Frostbite's good. It's exactly what you would want out of DOT. Very, very weak initial hit with a very, very strong overtime, which makes it very good at getting around shields. So yeah, that was our final entry in A tier. So I will see you guys soon when I pick up the recording again. All right, we are finally to the end. We are to the S tier. Whoops. I mean, love them or hate them, you know that they're the best because it's just AoE's the tier. Yeah, they're all still ice, so keep it all relative. They kind of all suck. But, you know, these are fantastic spells with consistent and constant uses. The moment they are received, they will be in your deck and stay in your deck. They are just that useful. Also, song in the background is the Ilium City theme from Fossfire's Champions, goated game. But yeah. So, here you go. I mean, you already saw what number 5 is, but let's get to it, is Blizzard. I mean, the world's worst 4-pip AoE is still incredibly good. I mean, just thinking about it mathematically, you're spending 1 pip over your 3-pip hit to multiply your damage by 2. So if you want to be very, very ungenerous, then that is 6 pips worth of damage for 4. Yeah, I mean, even with Ice's DPP, it's still great. It's still insane. I mean, what's a school with a 4-pip hit? Kraken? Kraken does 520 to 580. If you consider the ×2 multiplier for Blizzard, it does 500 to 580. So that's what you get with a 4-pip AoE. You take the worst DPP of a school, or the school with the worst DPP, and you make it the school with the best DPP. That's how powerful that AoEs are. I mean, there really isn't much to say here. It's just cheap, effective. It's all you could ever want. Blizzard is a tool that everyone can point and laugh at and be like, wow, that's the worst 4-pip AoE. You know what? If Life naturally learned a Blizzard counterpart, it would love it. If Death naturally learned a Blizzard counterpart, it would love it. Those are tools that those schools really wish they had. And, I mean, like, small mention that Blizzard comes a little bit later than some 4-pips do, excluding Tempest, but, I mean, that's 2 levels extra, and it's a world of a difference. But Meteor does come earlier, Frog comes earlier, Sandstorm comes way earlier. So Blizzard is later than those schools, but I mean, we're looking at this in reference to just the Ice School. We're looking at an Ice School's tools, and I mean, as an Ice Wizard, this is going to be your primary hit, especially for mob clearing. If you have enough damage, you just throw an enchant on it. You know, with an Epic, you're doing 550 to 590. Once you start putting epics on the 4-pip AoEs, they kind of all start becoming more centralized in their damage. So once you get, you know, epic, what is Meteor Strike doing? 605 to 645 in comparison to 550 to 590. Like, they're not too far off at that point. You know, it's just good, consistent damage. It's great. And yeah, like I mentioned here, Life and Death have to farm spellments for a similar tool. A better tool, don't get me wrong, but a similar tool. That's how valuable 4-pip AoEs are. So I mean, like, you can be pissed that Blizzard, a terrible spell, is this high on the list, but it's a terrible list because they're ice spells. So, you know, it kind of makes sense in that framing. Speaking of... Oh, actually, not speaking of, we have Count Crocula. And this is a spell that, like, I see this and I'm like, man, this is cool. Why couldn't we gotten this, like, level 80, 90 or something? Like, why did we have to wait till the final world of the game currently, Wallaroo, to get a better AoE? Because, I mean, that's literally what Count Crocula is. There's no added effect. It's just 5 pips, one of which is a school pip, to do 400 damage to everyone. I mean, it's just like, that's the only difference. It's just Blizzard, but better. It's 1 pip for 1 more pip's worth of damage, and more so, in fact. You know, on a high end, this is 110 more damage for 1 pip on a high end Blizzard, and it's much more consistent, which is great. It's just like, there's not much to say. It just lost a lot of points for its availability because, I mean, by the time you're at Wallaroo, this is still nice to have, don't get me wrong. It's a fantastic tool, but I don't know, to some extent, you could just blade into 7-pip AoE, which is very consistent, very reliable. Count Crocula, 400 base damage, put an enchant on it, boom, 700 damage. That's a pretty nice benchmark. That's pretty good. So, you know, I mean, I really wish it was available earlier, because it is a fantastic tool. And I say, speaking of 7-pip AoEs, we got Frost Giant. And I mean, the world's worst 7-pip AoE is still undeniably one of Ice's best spells. I would even argue at this point, now that it's been buffed, it's not even a bad spell relative to other spells. Relative to other 7-pip spells, yes, it's bad. But relative to other spells, just in general in other schools, you know, it's not too bad. It's kind of like 2 sandstorms put together worth of damage. That's not half bad. You know, that's pretty good. It's respectable. But yeah, prior to its recent buff, it probably would have been 2 tiers lower, because it was like 460 for 7 pips, and that's just, it's not good. At that point, it's like, I don't know, maybe I would just Blizzard, and if it doesn't kill, just Blizzard again. Yeah, it only took them like 16 years, but hey, better late than never, guys. But yeah, now my Ice is actually excited to get the spell. I'm a dirty little filthy farmer, so I have like spell elements ready to go. And I mean, that's pretty rad. But yeah, I mean, 570 for 7 pips to all, it just gets the job done. But like, please guys, we went in the step in the right direction, but just remove the stun, guys, and just give us like 80 more damage. Like, if Power Nova can do 665 on balance, which isn't that much stronger than Ice and Life damage per pip, can we just make like Frost Giant like, I don't know, 640? What does Forest Lord do? Like what, 620 to 680? Just put it somewhere in between that, and it'll be like the consistent counterpart. Nobody wants the stun, guys. Nobody wants it. I don't care if it's school identity. Make all the 7-pip AoEs boring. I do not care. I just want damage. And I mean, of course, you can obviously point out it's literally just worse Stormlord, but I mean, that's not a fair comparison. But in the school of Ice, in the realm of Ice, I mean, this is going to be like your most used spell in the game. It's, well, excluding like Ice Blade, of course. But I mean, yeah, the second you get this spell, especially in comparison to Blizzard, that's a huge upgrade. Does well with enchants. You know, 870 with an epic is, I mean, in comparison to what Ice used to be dealing with, is insane to think about. Because, I mean, it used to be, like, putting an enchant on that just to do 700 damage, which is currently the base damage of Orthrus. Now you're not that pathetic. God bless. You don't need a monstrous just to get on par with other schools. Now you're just, you know, behind them. But hey, we're not talking about Ice in reference to other schools. We're talking about Ice in the realm of Ice. And in the realm of Ice, this is a fantastic spell. You're going to have it in most all of your decks, both boss setups, minion clearing setups, support setups even. I mean, it's just a good tool. Does good damage, gets the job done. I would say there's not much else to say, but I mean, I could probably go on about the history of this card forever, because very rich history. You know, I've been talking here for a while, but it's still faster than the original animation, so hey, props to me. Okay, so this is number 2, Reindeer Knight. This is like the best Ice spell, but I just couldn't give it number 1 due to its availability, because this spell is such an X factor in terms of availability. For those who don't know, Reindeer Knight is absurdly easy to get if you know when to get it. To the point where I think my death fought Loremaster twice during July, which was a Christmas during July event. Literally twice, and I had enough spell elements to upgrade it. Not upgrade it, to get it on my Ice. And I mean, a Reindeer Knight is literally just Deer Knight, except very slightly worse. And I mean, the damage of this is Frost Giant, but for 1 less power pip. And that's a big difference, especially early on, before you have a pip deck, prior to level like 102, I think it is. I mean, you can Blade into Reindeer Knight, and that's fairly strong. That's not bad at all. I mean, that's like what Death loves to do too. Death loves to Blade into Deer Knight. Even with Ship of Fools, Deer Knight is still fantastic. Reindeer Knight, very similar story. I mean, especially for the DPP of Ice, it's absurd. We're talking, even if it was a single target hit, it's like marginally weaker than Frostbite. Like, it's 15 damage weaker with a stronger initial hit, which has its own utility. But I mean, it's Deer Knight, guys. You know Deer Knight. I know Deer Knight. Deer Knight's awesome. Everybody loves Deer Knight. It's like a mini Fire Dragon, but people hate on Fire Dragon for whatever reason, even though it's just like the better version of them. I don't know. It's just people hating on fire. But, I mean, it's Reindeer Knight. But yeah, ignore the Spellmint path. They're, like, useless. It's just like, oh, do you want to increase the initial hit and decrease the damage over time? It's like, I mean, I guess so. But, ignore the Spellmint path on Deer Knight. Not Reindeer Knight. Reindeer Knight, it's just kind of superfluous. Deer Knight, it's bad. It's like, hey, you want to take off 50% of the damage to put, like, a minor weakness on everybody? That's old Power Nova. Old Power Nova sucked. And it was one of the reasons why balance was so painful to play through. Because you had to wait till Ra and Celestia, and even then, Ra wasn't that great. But, yeah. I mean, it's Reindeer Knight, guys. It's Deer Knight. It's Deer Knight. I mean, what else do I say? Especially in the realm of ice, and it's an amazing tool. Technically, Death needs Deer Knight a little bit more, but by the time you get Deer Knight, you already have Crow, which is nice. Reindeer Knight, like I said, is such an X factor in its availability, because it's so easy to just go to Lore Master when it's that time of the year, either July or like special Christmas promotion or Christmas itself. Get some Spellmint drops, put them in your shared bank, put them on your ice, unlock the spell. So it's like, yes, if you have access to this spell, it is your best spell pretty much all game, always, because, I mean, you could technically be getting this level 1. You're not supposed to have Arch Mastery until 50, but I'd argue even if you wait till 50, it's still great then. I mean, my ice has it currently at 42. I just socket the Arch Mastery. It's not hard, guys. I mean, it's Deer Knight. And yeah, it's scored an even 300 points. I mean, it's just fantastic. DPP is great. Utility is great. What more can I say? And number 1 officially, because even though number 1, I think Reindeer Knight is better. Reindeer Knight gets that penalty for, are you going to get this spell, are you not? Snowball Barrage. I mean, guys, it's Tempest. I mean, what else can I say? It's Tempest that requires a Shadow Pip. But who cares? It's Tempest for ice, and it's better. I mean, like, what more can I say? This is a spell you are guaranteed to get towards the end of Polaris, which is nice. I mean, it's good for boss fights, it's good for farming, damage per pip AoE-wise, it's going to outperform Frost Giant, it's going to outperform Blizzard. Think it outperforms Snow Angel? Yes, it does. Doesn't outperform Reindeer Knight, which is unfortunate, but I mean, there's so many uses for it. I mean, take Tempest and give it a little bit of judgment. That extra 15 damage per pip adds up very fast, especially for Ice, who needs every little bit of damage they can get. I mean, it's Tempest. Like, you know, I'm not making any other lists yet as the time of recording. You know, I just made my Ice list for fun. We're at the end of it right now, Snowball Barrage. But I mean, like, Tempest is an S+ tier spell. It's probably the best spell in the entire game. So for Ice to get a bootleg Tempest that does more damage but requires a Shadow Pip, I am A-okay with. And since you can control, you know, when you use it, you are controlling how much damage you do exactly. You can base how much damage you do off that, and that consistency is so nice. Somewhat late on, but once you have it, it's probably never leaving your deck. Even in, like, the most dire of situations, you'll probably have one in your deck. Just like Tempest and Storm, no matter what, you'll always have, like, one copy in your deck. Doesn't matter if you're using it for single target, AoE, it's just tried and true consistency, utility, all wrapped up in one package. Which, I didn't give Snowball Barrage's, like, score ranking here. I think I forgot it. I want to say it was 305. Yeah, whoops. But anywho, you know, sources and final thanks. The Wizard101 Central, the wiki. I have, like, the school ice spell for Frost Beetle right now. That's what I did, is I pulled all the images from Wizard101 Central, and I don't think I would have made this without them, because I don't want to Google search all that. And I mean, that just made the process so much easier. But, you know, besides that, let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Like I said, my Ice Wizard's level 42, so hey, I don't have the best opinion, but I do have plenty of high-level wizards. Highest level is my Merciless Death. Not Merciless, but he has Merciless Gear, level 150 Death. You know, I've paid attention to PvP meta and so on and so forth. I've been playing this game for 14 years. I've seen the original Frost Giant and all of its disgustingness, so I mean, I was very excited and very happy to put Frost Giant where it landed. I was very happy for that. But, you know, type in the comments, agree, disagree. Is my face stupid? You can't even see it, but I don't know. Maybe you opened my webcam while I was recording. I just want engagement, you know? Bring it up. And, you know, Ice was the easiest to rank because they all suck. So at the end of the day, it was just like, hey, is the utility garbage? Yes, then it goes in a bottom tier. Is the damage decent? Then it probably goes in the top half. But, you know, if I were to choose a school next, it'd probably be Fire, which would be a lot more tricky due to their main focus on DOTs and traps. So that'll be fun. But, you know, just thanks for watching, and, you know, if you made this far, give me a like if you liked it, dislike if you disliked it. Besides that, see you guys later, maybe. I'll consider it. Oh, and also, have yourself a fantastic day.